Hello, good evening, and welcome. Apparently, I'm live, but you never know. Good evening, Jonathan. You're always first. You're always first. Yes, your Twitter pic was sideways for me as well. I know you're thinking portrait mode, but actually, it came in for me as landscape. I don't know why. I've had that a couple of times actually with the iPhone 11.
I don't think he meant that portrait.
No, I know he didn't mean that portrait, but that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
If you were listening to a blind word, I was actually
I'm
saying.
trying to send the mail.
So you can hear me then, Mike?
I can hear you.
Jolly good. Right, now, if you were to talk, I'd be able to hear you.
Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. Is that enough talking?
More than enough.
Thanks.
Oh, we've got exciting news tonight. We have, hello, Deb. Oh, we have got exciting news. It might be more exciting for us than you, but you know, you're our family and we do like to share. So you're going to be subjected to it, whether you like the idea or not. Oh,
Yeah, I'm pregnant.
There are just no words. Now, Mike's got to remind me, and you guys have got to remind me, when I come to share the webcam, don't let me do it the old way. I've got a new way, which I had last week, but I forgot. What can I say? And that was last week. This week's been far more exciting than last week was. Hello, Graham. Visitors? Oh dear, that's bad planning on a Friday. The first bit's the most important, Graham. That's all I'll say. First bit's the most important. Right, what I've done with that, Jonathan, I've re-edited. Well, no, not re-edited. I've edited the version that we have locally, and I'm going to upload it. I can't swap it out, unfortunately. I'll have to upload it and then have it separately. But that's what I'll do with it. It wasn't us. It was fine live. Let this be a salutary lesson. Attend live. I've no idea what YouTube managed to do with that. They mangled it to death. But yes, there is a proper recording, and I've redone it. Hello, Carl. Hello, Peter. Hello, Kim. Oh, all the gang is here. Right, let me just shut this up on here. Why am I actually hearing that? I have no idea. What I was supposed to be hearing was Mike. But with Mike, I'm hearing me. That's alarming. Why am I hearing me from Mike's bit? Let's turn that on. No, that's really me. Maybe I'm just too loud. Not that I could ever be too loud, surely not. Right, let me take that down a little bit. That's a bit better. So Mike's going to have to get quite snug and close with his microphone tonight. That was because he was crackling, which also isn't good. So how's the audio for folks? Are we all there? No, you're not going mad, Jonathan, and I got a comment about it as well. I will sort that out and tweet a link out. I will. It was absolutely fine live, so I can only assume when it finished, they decided to process it and it all went to hell in a handcart. I have no idea what they did with it. Yes, your guests are very inconsiderate, Graham. That's all I can say. Right, well, we're a little bit behind ourselves, aren't we? There are reasons for this, but I will sort that out. Right, let's make sure that you can see my desktop, which is the blue bit, and then I'll go into the slides, and then we can get on. Excellent. Thank you, Pete. Thank you. Right. Now, there are reasons that maybe what you're imagining will come up on the screen might actually not. There are reasons for that. Let me just do a quick think. Where did that appear? I'm going to have to do one more thing before I do this. Let me just switch you back to where you were. I have got a recording going, and I'm just wondering if I'm actually recording the right screen. It's been that kind of week. I will explain why, and you'll all have lots of sympathy, I'm sure. Maybe not. Am I recording the right screen? I've no idea. It's not really telling me. Okay, let's do a new recording and make sure that I am. Oh, I am. I was. Great. Fine. Should have checked that first, shouldn't I? What can I say? Right. Let's get back into it all. I can't use both of them because I'm demonstrating it later. That's the problem. I do like a belt and braces approach, but I wasn't. Well, what have you got there? Oh, we've not seen the Neo, right. He didn't watch it. I did, Kim. I thought it was amazing. Anyway, what we got tonight? Hello. We've got loads. We've got lots of updates. We've got the results from NeuralCam. So what I did was took all the photos I took last week. No processing on them, but I have them all there for you to compare and contrast. I have freebies. I was also contacted regarding the Trifold brochure creation. And it was somebody who'd seen a session I'd done before and said that last time I did it a different way. And they were interested in that way. So I'll show you the other way to do it in Affinity Designer. Then we've got Mike conditionally formatting our data in Excel before I use virtually every app I've got installed on the Mac to configure my Stream Deck. And then we have unboxings, which I do not know how I have managed this. We had it available last week and I didn't get the time to unbox it. So it's going to be unboxed tonight. It is going to be unboxed tonight, definitely. But the week at MacBites headquarters, been a bit of a week, hasn't it, Mike?
It has.
It started off not too bad. We had a social outing, but it was cancelled. Must have heard we were coming. So I spent the day updating because Apple were bringing out, I'd done all the iPads once, and then they brought out a point update and then another point update. So there they all are in their 9 racks, stacked up, ready to be updated. I was running out of cables by this stage, as you can see. But and then that little thing at the front, that's my Kindle. At the back, we have the venerable 2009, yes, it's 10 years old, laptop that's still doing a job. That's attached to the scanner. And there's a couple of laptops in there, but that's all the iPads, and all the iPads needed updating. I thought I was done at that stage and went into Sunday with ideas of productivity to realise I needed to do the watch this time. So then I set about doing the watch. That was the hairy, scary bit. You'll notice if you've ever had a watch that you only get to see that on the screen when you're transferring it between devices. And that's what I was doing. We got our iPhone 2 weeks ago today. Can you believe it's 2 weeks, Mike? Scary stuff. But we only did a quick setup, and we said last week we were still at the point of what do we do? Well, Sunday was it. It got moved, and I did what Jonathan did. I took Jonathan's sage advice and did a transfer rather than a build as new. I wanted to do a build as new, and so did Mike. But we decided against it. Far too much risk of stuff disappearing. And in hindsight, I don't know what took me a week to make my mind up. That was definitely the way to go. But that was the weekend. We then headed into the week. Mike had high hopes, didn't you, Mike?
Of what?
He's wondering now what. Yes, it could have gone better. The football. Oh, bless him. Bless him. He was watching it and yes, never mind. But we also on Monday had our beautiful, beautiful house guest again, the lovely Lola. But Monday was a heck of a day for us. The most important thing that happened was the big question we faced. What big question? Well, it went into Tuesday, and I think you'll work it out. If I say, wait for it, we officially adopted Lola. She's ours. Oh my word, there were tears. A lot of you will be aware, but also a lot of you won't be aware, so I'll relay the story. Lola's a Samoyed, and we had a Samoyed. We got our first Samoyed in 2001. And he was a lovely little boy called Maya, and we had him for 13 and a half fantastic years. He died in 2014, and we missed him like crazy, and everybody instantly said, "You're getting another one." Now, many of you won't be aware, but 2014, not the best year for us. In fact, it started in 2013 when my father died. So he died in September 2013. Maya died in July 2014, and my mum was given a devastating diagnosis and only lived for 10 days after it, and she died in December 2014. So within 14 months, we'd gone from a family of 5 to a family of 2, kicking around the house. And people would say to us, well, you're getting another dog, you're getting another dog. And Mike got so cranky about it in the end, he said, no, we're not getting another mother either. So for the last 5 years, people have been saying, when you're getting another dog, when you're getting another dog. And we always said, Mayo will know when the time is right, when our hearts have healed enough, he'll find us a dog. And people looked at us as though we were card-carrying insane. But he did. And Lola is 4 years old and she's absolutely gorgeous. So we've been looking after her for about a year now, on and off, when her family were busy, etc. But circumstances have changed and she's now come to live with us. So we couldn't be happier. Please excuse me if there's anything not quite right with this presentation. It's been a heck of a week. Now, on Wednesday, as has already been mentioned, it was the Microsoft event. Yeah, that's unusual, isn't it? Talking about a Microsoft event. But I remember the first Surface event, which was about 2010, I think. And I remember saying to Mike, I think they've got it this time. And Mike was like, yeah, it'll all go wrong. But they've been fairly stable with their hardware over the last 8-9 years. And Wednesday, they were announcing lots of new Surface products. There was some that were expected. In terms of, it was predicted there would be an upgrade to the one that Mike got last year, and that there would be a new laptop, which is what that one is. And that's actually very nice. That's beautiful, that, isn't it, Mike? I think that is a beautiful, beautiful piece of kit. But by far the most exciting thing that came out was 2 completely new form factor devices called the Neo and the Duo. And that you're looking at there is the Neo. Basically, it's about the size of an iPad mini. The difference is it's 2 screens. And the 2 screens fold in on each other like a book. But they also, 360 degrees, fold back on themselves as well. There's a pen or pencil included on the back. It charges magnetically, and you can have 2 completely different apps on those screens, or you can have one single app that scrolls across the 2 of them. By far the best thing, I couldn't get a picture of it, but I would highly recommend, if you're in any way interested, even if you're an Apple fan, good evening, Neil, going to watch it, because Apple can't afford to ignore this one. Now, the most unfortunate thing is that these that they've announced, they are not going to be available. That would be lovely, wouldn't it, Jonathan? That's not Mac compatible. It has a special version of Windows on it, but they're not going to be available for a year. And the reason that they've announced them now is to get them in the hands of developers, so the developers can make the most of the hardware in terms of the kit that comes out. But it looked amazing. It was also a fantastic event. If you've not seen it, honestly, at least watch some of it. At least watch the beginning of it. Because the presentation that they put on it, he was very good. I can't remember his name. It could be Scott. But he had such a deadpan, dry way of delivering it that I really enjoyed it. As a presentation, I really enjoyed it. I think that one is actually running a special version of Windows as well, as Neil says. Now, the little one is like a phone. And it, form factor wise, you know, again, it folds back on itself. It looks like that, only it's a baby one. So there's Neo, that's that one, and Duo, the little one. But I mean, everybody's going to say it's a phone. He was rather pleased that no one had guessed that one when he announced it. So that it was definitely an event that was worth seeing, because I can imagine, I reckon most Mac people thought about 3 years ago that it was imminent that Apple would release something like that. But Johnny was busy with his coffee table book, etc. So it didn't get done. But that's what you've got now. I know it runs Windows. I know. And she actually made a point of showing you Edge. And it was like, oh dear. Now, actually, it does run Windows, but the tiny one also accepts all Android apps. So instead of doing the Windows Phone thing, which had great cameras on it, but never actually really took off other than that, they've gone a different route this time and just are going to plug into the Android ecosystem, which is the good way to go. Now, whether it will see the light of day is always another thing with Microsoft. But as I say, you know, maybe we're looking back and judging them harshly. Maybe they've got it right this time, that they know they can't keep announcing things that don't happen. Why that's burnt on my memory is there was a product called the Origami a good few years ago now, and I love the idea of it. It was basically that, but it was ugly. But functionality-wise, I thought, I'm liking the look of that. It had a pen and all sorts. And they had a prototype and they announced it, but it never actually got released. So hopefully with these that they will. They're incredibly thin, incredibly light, and hopefully will challenge Apple in some way to bring out something better. We hope, but you never know. Good evening. Then on to Thursday. Well, by Thursday, I'm sorry, but we were just looking forward to the weekend. Isn't she adorable? That was her toy, and she decided she was going to sleep with it in her mouth. Oh, I loved it. But we were just ready for the weekend so we can take her out and buy her treats and things. But we managed to stagger to Friday, and here we are. So I'm going to do a few updates first. I've talked about Envato Elements before. Well, Envato Elements is, for those who don't remember, it is a subscription-based service for assets, and it has a huge range of assets. It's the only one I pay for. The price is $14.99 a month, but I think it's cheaper if you go for a year. But it includes video, audio, 3D stuff, WordPress themes. It's amazing. Well, they've just got into bed. Oh, that was it. It was the Courier. Yes, I think Origami was its prototype name. Yeah, the Courier, and it was black, and it kind of folded in and back on itself. It looked great, but it never really made it. But I think the Neo is what that should have been. So here's hoping. Anyway, Envato Elements have got into bed. They have bought 2020. And 2020 is another stock company. So they now have another 50,000 images available for the same subscription price. So if you were on the fence about it, be on the fence no more. I find that is definitely worth the subscription. Now, I guess I'm potentially in a different business maybe than you are. Maybe you don't have the need to have access to that many images, but I find that that's incredibly good because it has got the video clips in it and it has got the audio clips in it, and it's got a very nice search system with it. So if you were thinking about it, it's just got a whole lot better. Now, last week we looked at NeuralCam, and NeuralCam was a $2.99 app that you can install on both iPhone and iPad. Now, caveat on that is iPad, you need to 2 times it. It's not a dedicated iPad app. The reason I tried it was I've got a fantastic iPad. I've got an iPad Pro 11-inch. And while I wouldn't choose to take photos on it, it was, until I got my iPhone 11, considerably younger, and the camera was considerably better than the one on my iPhone 7. So I wondered if it would work, and it did, and that was what we talked about last week. Yes, 416 chocolate photos. I think they've been to Slattery's, haven't they? So I installed it and we had a look. This was the photo that I took from the iPhone 7. You saw how dark it was last week. Well, that was what the camera managed on its own. Not bad considering how dark it was. What I will say is the red pen at the back is day glow normally, and that highlighter, well, you know what a highlighter looks like, and it doesn't look as muted as that. It all looks a bit green. But the reason that I'd got that black book behind it was to try and keep the light off it so we could see, so we could give it a good test. This is what NeuralCam managed. No flash. It looks overdone by comparison to the other one, but if I put the pen, that red pen, next to it, I can tell you the colour's actually bang on. So no flash. The idea is that NeuralCam picks up way more light, or at least makes the most of what little light there is and manages to do that with it. So that was what we had. No assistance. That's what we've got with NeuralCam. And that's where, no, hang on. And that is what we've got with the iPhone 11 in night mode. So you can see it's a lot sharper. The quality of the photo is a lot better. But in terms of colour, it's still a little bit dark. Now, I didn't do anything with those. And that's a three-way comparison. So just to give you some kind of idea. It's something that I would leave on my iPhone 7 and something I would potentially use on my iPhone 7. Obviously, I have my 11 and I would have that with me. But if need be and I needed to use another camera, then I would definitely give that a go. It was certainly a lot lighter and a lot more, the colours were a lot punchier and a lot more realistic than with no help at all. But I think if you look on the left-hand side of that image, at the edge of the plastic box, and you look on the right-hand side of the image at the edge of the plastic box, you can just see the huge difference in quality between the iPhone 7 and the 11. Now, I know we've had between that, there was the 8, wasn't there? There was the, was it the XR and the XS? Oh, and the 10. There was quite a few between it, but yes, it is a big improvement to the 7. So we're loving that. We're loving that. Right, another update, Pixelmator Photo. Now, we talked about this and I did a whole session on it. You'll find it on my YouTube channel. One of the problems with Pixelmator Photo was it was a great app. People expected it to be, I think, a direct competitor with Affinity Photo on iPad, and it's not. Quite frankly, it's not. But one of the big problems with it, even if you were happy with what it did, was how it did it. Audio's crackling a bit. That could well be Mike. I have no idea why he's crackling. Let me turn... Is that any better? Let me know if that's any better. If it is, then it's Mike that's crackling and I'll have to turn him on again later. I don't know why Mike's crackling. Right, so the problem was how it accessed the photos. So what the import options were. Well, you can see it can now access your photos and your files, which is much better than it could before. So we have much improved import options. Another thing that people were going absolutely crazy about was batch processing. So they have added batch processing. It's you, Mike, you're crackly. I don't know why you're crackly, but you're crackly. And the third thing they've improved is the export options. So before you could only select a file type and quality, which makes no sense if you think about it, because you could have taken something on your phone or your iPad and it's going to be really big. You want to export it maybe quite small for social at say 640 by 600 by 300 or something like that. You couldn't do that. But now you can scale images to a couple of different presets, or you can choose a custom pixel width and height. It sounds a small thing to change, but it's important if you do need to send it out for web work. So a couple of changes there with Pixelmator Photo, which is still only $4.99. Now, other updates. Who knows that I adore iWork? I absolutely love iWork, or I did, till they ripped all my favourite features out many, many years ago. And they still haven't put them all back. But there have been updates. There have been updates to the Mac version and the iOS version, but mainly the iOS version is playing catch-up. But they have added a couple of features, one in particular to Pages that's quite handy, which I will show you. Now, if you're not a Mac user, but you do have access to an iPad, you may not be aware that Pages, Numbers and Keynote are completely free. So I'm just going to show you one of the things in here. I want to make a new document, so I choose New Document and I go in here. And one of the things that has driven me mad over the years is the templates are incredibly good. Very, very good. As you can see, you've got books here in portrait, you've got books in landscape. You know, they are very good. If what's there is exactly what you want, then you sort it. That's fantastic. But if you just want to start with a blank document, I would like my stuff to be not Arial, Avenir. I like Avenir, but every time it defaults to Helvetica New. Well, one of the things they've changed, there's a couple of things, but let's look at this one first. You can, in here, set the font size, set both the font and the size for new documents. So this is the new one. This is the new thing that's in there. 11's quite small as well, so I'm much more likely to choose 12, and I'm much more likely to choose Avenir. In fact, I might push it to 13. So I can actually change that there now. These things were there before, changing the default, etc., and always using the blank one rather than actually seeing the template or choosing a different one. But this is the new one, this default font, which will make the change down there. The other option that they've added is this optimizing movies for older devices. You had the devil's own job if you were importing video and it wasn't supported on devices for playback. So they've added that as well. So I've just created that in there. Let's see if it's worked. Now, this one here will be the old font. So older font. So that's Helvetica New. But if I say new and I choose blank, it should be Avenir. There we go, Avenir 13. So that's one of the changes that they've made. They've also provided the support for video, both in Numbers and Keynote. I would show you Keynote, but I'm actually running it right now. So I thought that one was worth being aware of. It's not like them to do nice little tweaks like that. They go for the big stuff or nothing at all. But with that one, no, they've actually added something useful. I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Right, another new thing, and this is not if you're an iOS user. Who's heard of Duet Display? And Duet Display's been around for quite a while. Its sole function, it runs on an iPad or an iPhone, as you can see there. iPad is to the left. There is a companion server-based app that runs on the desktop machine or the laptop. And what it allows you to do, as that image shows you, is extend your screen onto your iPad. Now, I know we've got that sidecar thing and all of that now, but they're obviously aware of this. And there's big news from them this week that both on the Mac and Windows, you can now extend onto Android devices. It's Android 7.1 or later. And I thought it was a bit stingy on the Mac. You've got to have at least Mojave, which today is the latest. It doesn't even go back to High Sierra. You've got to have Mojave. And Windows 10 on a Windows device. The interesting thing is, because it's Android, it also works on Chromebooks capable of running Android apps, which is very clever. So if you're not a Mac user, and I know we have people here who are not Mac users, that might be something for you to look at. It's been Mac only up till now. Now, I say Mac only, that's not strictly true. It's been Mac and Windows, but only extending onto iOS devices. So the only change that they've provided is that if you have an Android device or a device capable of running Android apps, you can now extend onto those as well. But you may well not have been aware of it if you were not a Mac user or at least an iOS user. So there you go. Much better now on the iPad, new gesture support. Well, more on gestures later. Gestures have been the bane of my life this week. Right, our freebies. Well, we have our usual freebies, don't we? We have our Creative Market freebies. Some nice ones this week. I loved that, the geometry one. I unpacked that and started having a look at it. We also heard, we've got a fantastic letter from a lady who I won't name because I haven't asked her permission, who's been using our freebies and created fantastic things with it. Hopefully I can get permission to show you what they are. But yeah, I love these. Also, we are going to be looking at Procreate, and there is again more Procreate brushes. So there's a couple of fonts and 3 lots of graphics together with those Procreate brushes. Now, it's always a good time of the month when it's the beginning of the month because we get more freebies, loads of freebies. This time from Envato Elements. They give us great freebies every month, and they're not stingy with them either. How many we got there? We've got 6, 9, 12. There's a range as well. They do tend to give you across the board of the categories that they support. So there's Instagram posts there, there's flyers, there's SVG fonts, portfolio templates. I particularly like those ghost icons. I can see me using those ghost icons. I can. As we head into Halloween, I'm definitely seeing that they're going to get the light of day. They're very simple to create, but they're already done. So rather than waste your time, they'll be used on slides. I might have a little bit of a competition, so you've got to count how many you see in the session on the 25th, which is Johnny I's birthday. Just saying. Right, so next thing, alternative trifold brochures. Last time we looked at 2 different ways to make a trifold brochure or mailer. We looked at doing it in Affinity Publisher, which seemed like the most logical way to go. And that's because it can support you much better with the text running from frame to frame. But we also took a look at Affinity Designer, because that had the benefit of being able to export individual panels of the trifold brochure. And I said which one you would use depended on the output you needed. So in my case, I had a client who wanted to take the panels of the brochure, the 6 panels, and put them on a website like that. But I did it in a certain way, and there is another way to do it. So that's what we're looking at. So we're leaving Publisher alone. We're going into Designer. And I'm trying frantically to look at this. Did I put it on there, or was that just the output? That's just the output. So here's hoping it's where I think it is, but it's not going to be on the most recently used. No, life wouldn't be that simple, would it? Right, let's go into the Application Support Designer and hopefully find my trifold brochures. Trifold demo. Perfect. This is what we made last week. We had 2 artboards. We had inside and we had outside. And on that, we separated out, which you can just about see up there, that little blue line just at 99. So if I hover there, it's at 99 and 198. That's where we were marking off where the panels would be. So if we have a look at this outside here, and we click on that, we have a guide at 99 and a guide at 198. And that's where the panels were. And as it happens with this one, the panels were in different colours. But there is another way to do this. The reason that I did it this way was I felt it was the nearest comparison to the way that you would do it in Affinity Publisher. But, as was pointed out, I'd done it a different way before, and indeed I did. I'm just thinking if I can actually get to that. It's the one I did. I've changed how I did everything since then. Let's have a quick look. I'm looking in a file system to see if it's there. I've no idea what it was called. I've got a logo, new logo, newspaper cover, generic. No, I don't think I do. I don't think I do. I must have had that somewhere else. But what I'll do is I'll use this file and I'll recreate the alternative way of doing it. And explain why it may not be the best idea you've ever had. It depends. It really depends. But the other alternative way of doing it, this orange panel here, is a certain size. And the certain size it is 102 millimeters by 216. Now, does anybody know why that is particularly that size? Because I said I've got a marker at 99, which implies that if I divide my A4 page into 3, I'd have 3 panels of 99. So why have I got 102? Now, height-wise, A4 is 210 millimeters or 21 centimeters. So why have I got 216 again when I click on that panel? So who can tell me that? The clue's there if you work out what the difference is. So I'm saying to you, a panel of a trifold brochure is 99 millimeters by 210. So what's the difference there? And why? No one's saying a thing. I know some of you know. I know you do. Yes, Jonathan, it's the bleed. So the difference between 102 and 99 is 3. So, and that's the width. So the area it's talking about is, if we zoom in here, that little grey bit there between the area, the blue bit is the very edge of the shape. And the bit from there to the edge here is 3mm, and that's the bleed. The reason that you only have one area of bleed is that at the other side of it here, you don't need a bleed because the next panel's right next to it. But the height, there is a bleed at the top and there is a bleed at the bottom. So that's just something to be aware of. If you are printing it professionally, I would probably stick to that way of doing it. But if you are doing what I needed to do, now just to give you a quick reminder of what I did, over here we have an inside and we have an outside, and each of these is A4. And how we got the individual panels was when we went into the export, we had the A4 of the outside and the inside, and then we had individual little panels there that we drew here. You can create extra slices, and what I did was I created extra slices by drawing them out. Now, the alternative way of doing it, which may work better for you in certain circumstances, so I'll make you aware of it, is we now know that these panels should be, so let's assume for this we're not printing it, because if we were, we'd have to take that into consideration. But let's say if we're printing it ourselves, and we do want the panels, and we don't really, because if we lose these, let's take those away, you can then see that that guide and that guide is where the guide should be. But if you think in terms of putting text on here and having it flowing around or anything, that's one solid page. So the other way of doing it is to use artboards for the individual bits. So I've just dragged that on. It's 92 by 212, but I can go in and just size it to 99 by 220. And I now have panel 1. And I can then create panel 2 and panel 3. So this is another way to do it. Now, obviously, looking at that stage, you'll get the export of the panels okay. Won't look quite so grand when you're trying to do an A4 from it. So in a way, we're flipping what we did last time. Last time we started with an A4 page and we manually separated it. This time we're starting with the 3 panels and trying to glue them together. So if I bring this across to there, it will actually twang to it, and you get that green line when it twangs. And same on this panel here, bring it across and twang. Now, does that have any impact on the bleed? Well, if we just pull one away and have a look at the bleed, there is a bleed there, 3mm at the top, 3 on the left, 3 on the right, and 3 on the bottom. When we drag it close and put it next to it, although the bleed is still there, and you can actually see a line indicating it, it isn't going to interfere with the design. So that would be one way, an alternative way to the way I did it last week, of creating this. And maybe for you there is a benefit in that. I'm thinking in terms of maybe you've got sort of logos that you want to put on here and maybe line up quickly, where you can get that bang in the centre without having to think, oh, hang on, it's part of this and it needs to be so far from there. So that will be one reason for doing it. It also gives you the opportunity to export these artboards. Now, I know they're helpfully saying artboard 1, 2 and 3, aren't they, at the moment? No, 1, 1 and 1. Let's put that down as 3 and that down as 2 and that down as 1, and you get the idea. So they are 3 independent panels, and you can put your artwork on there in any way you want. Like that. Now, but you then have a problem. Great, you've got the individual panels, you can play around with them any way you like. But how do you then glue them back together if you want an A4? Well, it's exactly the same as we did last week, but in reverse. So if we look at this, we've got 1 export area, 2 and 3. What we don't have is an export area that will accommodate all 3 bits. But using this tool, the slice tool, you can hover over there and pull out a slice that will be, where it says slice 1, that's actually an A4. And let's have a look what it did with that. It made it a PNG, but I'm going to change that to a PDF. And I'll just export that PDF quickly and just show you that you do actually get, stick it on the desktop, stop changing back, got a mind of your own, that you do actually get an A4 page. So it's very, very similar to last week's method. The difference is you're just doing it backwards. So let's get that so we can see the whole page. So that is now an A4 page. Same principle. Which way is right? Well, there is no right way, it just depends on what you're doing with it. Literally just depends on what you're doing with it. There's nothing to stop you doing exactly what we did last week. So this, if we go back into the vector mode, this MacBites graphic that we've got, it doesn't stop you taking a copy of it and slinging it across here, apart from, you see the problem you've got? It's great if you want it just on one panel, but it isn't going across them all too well. So it just depends on how you want to work with that. If it were me, if I had any elements that I wanted to go across, I would use the single one here, where it's an A4. If I had separate panels and each had very different artwork on it, then I may go for this separate panel approach. There isn't a right way, there isn't a wrong way, there's just the way that works. And the way that works will depend on exactly what output you want. But really, this was just to let you be aware that there was another alternative depending on what you needed to do. Now, when I demonstrated it before, I demonstrated it with separate panels. That was literally because the data that I had, it was a branding kit and it had in it letterhead paper, continuation paper, with comp slips. I think it had a business card in it and it had a trifold brochure and I'd done it that way. From memory, I think it was just for standard printing. So it didn't have any colours on it, any bleeds on it, or anything clever. I just decided to do it separate because they wanted it separate on the website, just the panel separate on the website. Okay, so that was that demo. So I'll save that one and come out of there. Right, let's go back in. Is that the dog I can hear flapping away with a little self? It did, didn't it? Well, don't leave me with the conditional formatting, but do go and talk to go and see the dogs, all right? While I talk about condition. She's disappearing now. But conditional formatting. Well, to get this to work, I'm going to have to tunnel into Mike's machine, and I haven't actually done that yet. So I guess I need to stop talking, which might be a blessed relief for everybody. Who knows? Right, let's go and have a look at Mike's. Mike, have I got 2 spaces in there? It won't work if I have. Right. Oh, no. Yeah, that's what I want. Mike 27. Go on, you can do this thing. It's having a rare old thing. If it can't connect to you, then we're all stuffed, don't we, Mike? Why does it take so long to connect to you?
No idea.
Mind you, it's not connecting to next door at all. That's what's worrying me. Oh, look at that. There he is, bless him. All right, let's bring him across to here. I'm going to have to turn you up again, aren't I? Because I turned you off. He may be crackling. He may not be crackling. I don't know. If he's crackling, it's him and there's not much I can do. Let me know how his levels are when I shut up. Where you go, Mike.
Am I ready? Can I go?
I think you can.
Okay. Right. I'm going to talk about conditional formatting in Excel. So first thing is, what is conditional formatting? Well, formatting is things like bold, italic, font, colours, alignment, number format, etc., etc. And the conditional part is where you tell it that you want to apply a format based on a certain criteria. And that is what I'm going to look at. So, if we have a look at this block here, I've got a list of months and I've got targets and actuals. Now, what this data is, and it's real data, it is the number of steps that I have done every day since the beginning of the year. And it is real data. I actually exported the data from the health app on my iPhone. I had to do some manipulation to get it into columns, but that's my data. And what I've then done is I've done some formulas to work out the target for each month, and that is based on the daily target in M3 and or M2 it is, and then multiply that by the total steps for that month. So I'm just having a look at the chat. Peter says I sound rough.
I'm trying to log in to hear you. You sound okay to me.
Oh, good.
Oh, God. It's a joke. You're okay as you were. Carry on.
Oh, okay. Right. Oh, it's a dog joke. Rough. Yes. Got it. Got there eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
Right, back to Excel. So what I want to do is I want to say that if the actual, for any given month, if the actual is more than the target, then I want it to display with a green background, for example. Rather than doing them one at a time, which I could do, I will select all of those cells there in column N, because it's column N that I want to apply the formatting to. So I'll select those cells, then I'll go up to conditional formatting and create a new rule. This is very similar to the layout is very similar to the Windows version. I'm obviously doing it on the Mac version, but if you're a Windows user, then you should be able to follow along as well. I need to change the style to classic. This is slightly different on the Mac, but it's easy enough to work out the differences. With classic, you get 5 or 6 different options, and in this case, I want to use a formula to determine which cell to format. And the formula, all formulas in Excel start with an equal sign. And I want it to say that if the actual is greater than the target. So I'll click on the actual cell for January and it puts in N6 because that's the cell I clicked on. Now it defaults to absolute with the dollar signs, and I don't want it to be absolute because if it was absolute, then every other cell that I've selected would reference N6. So I need to take the dollar signs off. I could have typed N6, but if you click on it, it does default to the dollar signs. So N6 is greater than M6. I'll actually type M6 there, save me having to delete the dollar sign. So basically I'm saying if that condition, if that criteria, condition, that's where conditional formatting comes from, if that condition is true, if N is greater than M, then I want to format it. I've got some predefined formats, but I want to format it with, what did I say, a green background. So we'll go for that one. And then click on OK. So you can now see that immediately anything where the actual is greater than the target is now formatted as green. And should these numbers change, should that go to be, or should that actual go to be less than the target, then it will automatically remove the formatting. Now you can set as many conditional format rules as you like. So again, I'll select the same cells. I'll go back and create another new rule on the same cells. Again, I'll do a classic rule. And this time I will say if the value in N6 is greater than M6 multiplied by 0.8. So in other words, if what we have in column M is 80% or more of column, sorry, that's the wrong way around, isn't it? If N is 80% or more of the target. So if the actual is 80% or more of the target, then what I will do is I will format that with an orange background. So we have some cells there. Where it's 80% or more. Now in that particular case, it's overridden the other one. So what I can do is I can go to Manage Rules, choose the rules for the worksheet, and I can change the order of those rules as well. So I can move it so that this one takes priority over that one. And if I want to delete a rule, then just select it and click the little minus sign. So that in essence is the basics of conditional formatting. You select a cell or you select a block of cells and you apply some formatting to those cells with a rule, a condition. So if this is true, if this is greater than this, if this is that less than this, etc., then apply this rule. But that's only one aspect of conditional formatting. Another thing you can use conditional formatting for is to build a heat map. So what I want to do is I want to build a heat map out of all of this data here. To do that, I need to select all of that data and then go to conditional formatting, but not create a new rule. I'm going to use another feature of conditional formatting, which is color scales. And what color scales do is as you hover over them, what it should do, which it's not doing in this version, it does do it in the Windows version, but as you hover over these color scales, it gives you a preview and shows you what the data would look like if you applied that particular color scale. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to choose the one called red-white. The one called red-white is the one I always use for creating a heat map because the high numbers show in red, the low numbers show in white, and the in-between numbers show in some in-between colour. So I'll click on that one. And what it does is it automatically applies a background format to the cell based on the value in that cell, going from red to white. It's not really red, is it? It's more pink. So what I will do is I'll reselect those cells and then I'll go and change the rule settings. So conditional formatting, manage rules. Graded color scale is the rule I just created for the current selection. So I want to edit it and I'm going to change the high value to more of a proper red. I'll leave the low value set as white. And that's actually better. That shows the high numbers a lot better. The whole idea of heat maps is you're trying to look at patterns and trends. You're trying to see which are the in this case, the days when I did most steps. And I was actually looking at my calendar, trying to work out which was the days I did most steps. And looking at that, the 3rd of August and the 10th of August. And you should know what happened on the 3rd and 10th of August.
Would that be Lola?
No, that wasn't Lola. I haven't got Lola in my calendar, which is why I was trying to match up Lola walks with steps. No, it was going to Gorsworth to the 2 concerts.
Oh, of course.
And I was walking around in my outfits. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, there's more to this because we don't really want those numbers to display. It would look a lot better without the numbers. So I will select the cells. Now, of course, if I just press the delete key, that clears the numbers, but it also clears the formatting. So there's a special trick that you can apply to hide the cell contents. I want to keep the cell format, but I want to hide the cell contents. And what you do is you select the cells and then you go and click the drop down arrow in the format section of the ribbon, select more number formats, select custom, and into the box at the top of the scrolly list, type in 3 semicolons. 3 semicolons is a special code, which basically means make the cells blank. You can still see the cell contents by clicking in the cell and looking in the formula bar, but the actual cell contents are hidden. So if I just undo that, I'll show you that again. Select all the cells, click on the drop down arrow in the number format section of the ribbon, go to more number formats, click on custom and type 3 semicolons in there and click OK. I also think it would look better without all the grid lines, so I'll go to view and take the tick out of grid lines. That looks a lot better. Again, you can look at that and you've got a nice little heat map of the steps I've done this year. And the last thing that I'll show you on conditional formatting is using icon sets. So what I want to do here is I want to show, I'll ignore the targets, but I want to show whether for the month I had increased or decreased my step count. So did I do more in February than in January? Did I do less in March than February, etc.? And to start with, I will create a simple formula that just says actual, no, not actual minus target, sorry. It will be this month's actual minus last month's actual. And then copy that down. Now we can see we don't need these symbols, but you know what they say, people's brains react faster to symbols than they do numbers. And we can see straight away that anything that's a negative means that we did less steps this month than last month. And we could leave it like that, but I want to make it a little bit bright, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more engaging than just a set of numbers where the user has to figure out for themselves whether it's an increase or decrease. So I will select those cells. I'm not selecting January because we've got nothing to compare January to. So I'll select those cells, go back to the Home tab, go to Conditional Formatting and New Rule. And I want to use the icon sets. Now with the icon sets, you get all of these different sets of icons. So you could use the arrows, different types of arrows, or these arrowheads. They're the ones I want to use, and they tend to be used for directions, and that's what we're looking at: increase, decrease, or no change. I've seen these little arrowheads. They're used all over the place. You've probably seen them yourself. You see them on financial websites to indicate whether a share price has gone up or down. You see them on sports websites to show whether a team has moved up the league or down the league. Best not mention football, had we? I even remember on Top of the Pops many years ago when they would show whether a song had gone up the charts or down the charts or stayed in the same position that week. We've got other symbols, so traffic light symbols, which are very useful if you want to indicate a status of something. You've got flags. You've got these, which are often used for feedback. So lots of different symbols, but I'm going to stick to the green, red, amber. So I'll select that, and I have to do some configuration. First of all, I want to change the type from %, which is the default, to number. That's interesting. It uses % as 2 words, but it doesn't do that on the Windows version. But anyway.
It doesn't with percentile either.
That's true. The Windows version doesn't do percentile.
I think you'll find that's an error.
So what I want to do is I want to say if the value in the cell is greater than 0, I want it to show as green. It defaults to greater than or equal to, so I needed to change that to greater than, because otherwise it would show as green when it was exactly 0. I want it to show as red when it's less than 0, that's okay. And I want it to show as amber, yellow, whatever colour, when it is exactly 0. So with those selected, click OK. Do those look right? I think they do. Anything positive is green, anything negative is red. We haven't got one that's exactly the same, but if it was, it would show as amber. And the last thing to do is just to hide the numbers. Now I could use exactly the same method that I showed you before with the 3 semicolons, but there's an easier way with this, more friendly way. Let's go into Manage Rules, select that rule and edit it, and tick the box that says Show Icon Only. And there we go. And again, all of these things will change. So if we suddenly found that the actual was more than the target, was more than the previous month or less than the previous month, then these symbols would change. So there we go. Those are a number of different ways that you can employ conditional formatting. Started with basic conditional formatting, then went on to show you how to do a heat map in Excel, which uses conditional formatting. And then we looked at the icon sets, which I see a lot on things like dashboards and visual reports. So do we have any questions, or is the talk all about Top of the Pops? I like the icons as well, Kim. They're really cool. What happened in March and April? I think I was lazy. Either that or my watch stopped counting.
We were on holiday.
In that case, I was lazy.
Early April, we were on holiday. Now, early March, I can't remember.
No, me neither. Okay, do we have any questions?
But you know that week there in June?
Which one?
Where it's...
Yeah, that one there.
Didn't Ollie come to stay?
I think he could have done.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So I can match my step count up with dog walking. I should use icons of dogs, shouldn't I?
Do you know what's interesting?
What?
I can marry my blood pressure chart up to Amazon customer service calls.
I'm sure you can.
No, I can.
Right, that's it. I don't think there's any more questions, is there?
No, you've dealt with it all.
It's just about Top of the Pops.
Yep.
Right, I'll hand back to you.
Okay. Yeah, you were a bit crackly. We need to work out why you're crackly. Yeah, don't know what's going on there. All right, excellent. Let's lose that and head back into the next thing. Oh, we're getting through it tonight, aren't we? Editing video. Right, taking a different approach with this, because the thing with editing video is, editing video in what? Now, I do a lot of screen recording. In fact, I would say a good 99% of my video is screen recording. But even when I'm editing normal video, I would do that in one of my, what you would think of as being a screen recording application, either Camtasia or ScreenFlow. But I know that we've got people here who also use Final Cut. So what you need is a way to edit video that transcends the app that you're in. And I've picked 3 things to show. So lower thirds, gestures, and picture in picture. Doubtless I'll forget the 3 of those, so I'll make a note of what I'm supposed to be showing. But what we're looking for is a way to do it where you may think it's quite manual. What I'm going to do is to show you, hopefully, the pair of them. Camtasia and ScreenFlow, and what they can do in certain regards, and why it's not always the best, why that's not always the best way to go. Because there may be times you need to switch from one app to another. In my case, it would depend. Sometimes, at the moment, if I show you in my hidden menu bar, brace yourselves, as it does nearly meet in the middle. Right, this one here, next to the dog muzzle. It really is a dog muzzle. that stops you getting notifications when you're going live. But that's telling you that I'm using Camtasia to record, and that one there is ScreenFlow. Now, normally I record with both, and my rationale is, if one decides to take a walk, the other one will be okay. And that has actually happened. Now, the reason I'm not doing that tonight is, one, it didn't end well last week when I tried doing that. And the second reason is I want to give you ScreenFlow to show you here. So this was something I was working on earlier, which is why the screen's not great. But situation I've got with this is, if you use, tell me in the chat, if you do any kind of screen recording, which do you prefer, ScreenFlow or Camtasia? The problem that I have with this is, it has great features in terms of what it can do. But there isn't particularly a way to do a lower third if you wanted to do a lower third. But you can do it. You can do it. So let's get, hopefully, this. That's better. Now, what I've done here is a bit meta. So what I'm going to do is put something on it that's black, and that way you can get a better idea for what I'm actually doing. So I'm going to put an annotation on it, which is just going to be a black frame. And that way we can see exactly what I'm doing. So let's take that all down a bit. So this was just, I need a recording to show you what I'm doing. But you can see that doesn't work brilliantly for a start. But I use this quite a lot. I use this when I'm putting a frame over something to fade in or out to. Now you can see obviously that is a very lurid blue, and I'd probably want a black to fade it to. So let's sort that out. Now it's black. Right. So I've got on here my data, and I've got when I say my data, you know, my visuals there. I've got my visuals and I've got this black bit at the end. And I want to put a lower third on it. Now, that's pretty simple in any of these applications. You do have access to libraries. Now, I think global library here, or is it this one? This is the stock media thing, and you can, from the stock media thing, get lower thirds. You can also get music, etc. The reason that I don't use this is I have got a subscription to it, but that subscription is an annual thing, and I'm not actually sure that it hasn't run out. And the other reason is if I get used to relying on what's in any individual application, then when I come to do this in another application, I'm lost. It's like, well, this one doesn't support exactly the same as that one did, or it doesn't work in the same way as that one did. So I avoid doing it that way. I would do it manually. So I would go back and I would look at the annotation feature for lower thirds. Now, you're going to need to understand, if you're doing it in something like ScreenFlow, that you do have to bother more than one feature to get this done. But you would start with an annotation. And you've got different annotations, but I'm going to start with a solid one. The colour is set to black, which is not great, because we're not going to see it on black, are we? So let's go for something luridly pink. And let's put that on there. You're not doing it. There we go. Let's add that in. I see. Got a problem straight away here. Right, it needs me to draw it on the canvas, not off the canvas, even if I want it off the canvas. Fabulous. Right, but once you've got that, you can then come out of that mode. And once you're out of that mode, not that I want to rotate it, then you can stretch it off the canvas or however you want it. So this is a situation where you may very well start with the whole thing off the canvas. But for now, we want to be able to see it. So we have lurid pink. And I need, for a start, to only have one selected, and I need to draw it out. That's going to be the background of the lower third. But the next thing I need on my lower third, see you soon, Pete, is I need some kind of text for it. So I then need a text element, and that's going to sit over the top of it. So choose a font. Affinity is nice and easy to read, a reasonable size, and then put it in the right place. Now, as I take that down to where it should be for a lower third, you can see the problem I'm getting. It's got a background on it. Well, all of that is configured in the text properties over here. So I've got it aligned that way. I have got a fill colour on it, which I don't really need. Now, hang on, let me think. It's the background. It's the backdrop I don't want. That's it. Turn the backdrop off. So that sounds alarmingly like backstop, Mike. That's what freaked me out. Right, so that bit gives you, it's nice to have that on it if you want it to overlay on content, but it's not so great if you want it to be part of a lower third. So turn that off there. Now, you can also build animations in and out and all kinds of things, but depending on what you want to do with it, so usually that would be a person, maybe another person is... I'm trying to edit this and it's not having it easily, is it? There we go. Could be a person or it could be something that's coming up. So I would say something like coming up later in the show. That would come on first, and then there would maybe be another lower third. So this text would then change, and more text would come on telling you what would be coming on later. Right, at this stage, you've got 3 parts to this, even though it's going to be one thing when it's finished. So this annotation here is just covering the background. The pink bit and the white bit are the bits that I want to work together. Now, first decision is, how do you want this to display? And because it's all separate pieces, that's good, because you could have the background fading in first, and then you could have the text flying in, or you can create a group of it. Depends what you want to do with it. So first of all, this annotations bit here, which is the background, that's the pink bit. Do you want that fading in, or do you want it flying in? Well, it's just going to depend. And to do that, you then add the options that you've got to do that, which were from memory. That's an out, that's an in. So what I've now got, I'm going to move the text out of the way. I'm just going to look at the background. It will fade in, it will then display, and then it will gently fade out. And if we had that over the top, and we did exactly the same, so I'm doing this with a shortcut key. It's Command, Option, and comma for an in fade, and Command, Option, full stop for an out fade. Right, so let's make sure nothing's selected. Go through it again, and now you've got a lower third. Now, that's not the only way to do it, because if you do it that way, you've got to have these fades on both halves of it. And again, it just depends on how you're going to work this thing. Do you want that to fade out? Do you want something else to appear? We'd probably need that a lot longer. We'd probably have that at the beginning. And then we'd have another piece of text after it, after that's faded out. So go back to the text, or you could duplicate that one. You could copy it and you could paste it. And although the text isn't right, it is in the right place. It is the right format. And then I can say what is coming up later in the show. Now, what is coming up later in the show? Oh, yes, the Stream Deck. So I'll put there the Stream Deck XL programming. That's what's coming up later. And the same principle will apply. That will fade in. The background will fade in, and the first text will fade in. Then it will fade out. Then the new one will fade in, and then that will fade out. And if I shrunk that down, they would both fade out at the same time. Once you've got that, nothing to stop you grabbing it together and doing a group on it, which is, where's the shortcut key for group? There we go, a nested clip. And now the benefit is you can move that around to the relevant place and everything will move together. Now, that really is the only way to do it in there. And you could have animation on that and any kind of stuff you wanted to do. But by understanding how the whole thing hangs together, you're able to use exactly the same principle in another application. So I'm going to go into Camtasia here, and I've actually got a file, which we're going to come on to be using. But in Camtasia, you've got a whole different approach to take. You do have here in your library, let's have a look, is it in library there or is it somewhere else? But you can actually in here download extra stuff. So you can you've got a whole library of assets to go at and you can download them. But the same principles apply. If you understand the application, then you can make your own. And that way they are unique to you and you can have any kind of animations that you want in it. So if we go into the annotations in here, and we go to all, and we go to just shapes, then you've got a range of shapes, and you can just pick one of these shapes. So I'll take that white one and drag that on, and shrink that down a bit, and exactly the same principle applies. Just draw that out for what you want. We obviously had it a pink colour, so fill is white at the moment, but we can make it that nice pink colour. Maybe not that pink colour. That's not bad, is it? And then go back in here and get some text. So I think we've got a white text there. Is that white text? There we go, with a nice little drop shadow on it as well. And just do exactly the same thing. So they're using slightly different features, but to be honest, not much. Just put that where you want it and put it in, which was coming up next. So coming, which you don't spell like coming up next. I'm not keen on the drop shadow on that. No. Because you might want to annotate it or something, so maybe not. But you can go in here and you can get rid of the drop shadow. So you can just hit the cross and the drop shadow disappears, and now it looks virtually identical to what you had before. At this point, now with the last one we had it fading in and out. So I've got two elements here. I've got the shape behind it and I've got the text over the top. And you could have those fading in and out, or you could group them together. Or you could do magic things with it. So I've grouped it together, and I'm going to, when you double click it, that's what that looks like. You can still edit it, but it's in its own little group. It only displays on there as one thing to let you move it. But you can also then rename it. Hold on to the renaming thought, because that's going to be very important when we come up to sort this out with something else. But I'm going to do lower third so I know which the lower third is. But obviously you may want that to just say LT for lower third and then coming up next, so you know exactly which one it is. But rather than just leave it like that, because we haven't even got a fade on that one, what you can do with it is add some animations to it. So let's go into it. We have that there, which we may want to add. Let's have a look there. Let's have a look at visual effects. Do we want, was it a visual effect? No, that's something else. It is, we'll animate it, that's what we'll do. We will, no we don't want that, do we? Scale to fit, scale up. Yeah, maybe a scale up would work on it. Let's have a look. Let's have a look how that works. So basically, I'm drawing that out, how long that will take. Draw it back over there. And what it will do is that's actually going to scale that up over the duration of the little arrow. So it will take it up. Not particularly the best effect, that, because it's moving it in. You get the idea. But let me go back and get a custom one. So I'm going to put a custom one there. Now this is an animation. It doesn't do anything at the moment. Even though I'm going over it, not doing a thing. But here's the magic. This is what you can do with it. So I'm zooming out here so you can see the timeline. Let's say at the beginning of that animation, the length of the arrow is the duration of the animation. So let's say at the end of the animation, that's where I want it to be. And I'm going to move that there. But at the beginning of the animation, I would like this to be somewhere else. So I'm going to zoom right out and move it over here. So it's off screen. But over the course of the animation, it will move right in. Far too slow for a lower third. But now you've animated it, and then the text will come over the top. So to be honest, for a lower third, that needs to be much quicker than that. So let's take it back and try it again. Much better. Now, that one's just appearing. So we may want that to have some other kind of effect on it. Let's add another custom one to it. So just at the beginning, and we'll make it just about the same length as the other one. Again, at the moment, you've not done anything with it. But what you need to do, you need to be on the right-hand side of the arrow. And what you do with that is define what it looks like at the end of the animation. If you then move back to the other end of the transition, so that little arrow there, so I'm going to move in so we can see it. So right at this end of it, where do you want it to be at the start? What do you want it to look like at the start? Well, let's say I want the opacity set to 0. Then in essence, what I'm telling it is, start with it set to 0, but over the transition, end up with it at 100% opacity. So we've used 2 animations on there. And now it looks like that. You've got your lower third. And the beauty of that is, although you can have pre-canned lower thirds, etc., that look a lot snazzier than that, if you understand the basic principles that I've just shown you there, you can make it look like anything you like. You could put graphics in there or anything else that you need to do, and you've got a fantastic lower third. The other thing to think about is it works brilliantly no matter which application you're in. So I like to work independent. Now, how can I work even more independent than I've just shown you? Well, text is pretty much text, but this shape in the background, getting that just the right size, just the right shape, etc., I would actually design the whole thing in Affinity Designer. I would then export it to a folder, and there it can sit quite happily. And it doesn't matter which application I edit in, I go to that source folder and I take out my assets, and then independent of whatever I edit in, I've got standard branding. And I have had to edit where Mike will know all about this, where I will be cursing and going on and saying Camtasia failed or ScreenFlow failed, I'll have to use the other one. And what you don't want is to have all the branding in one app and not have a clue how to do it in the other one. So learn the basics in terms of all I've done here is a custom animation, which is say, there's the starting point, there's the finishing point, what do you want it to look like? And then I've used the standard features. And that means it doesn't matter what I edit in, I've got standard lower thirds. Even better than that. All right, there's my lower third. So let's take that back over there, see it appear over my video, and there we go. And I can even hear myself, which thankfully you can't. I can hear myself talking there. Even better than that. All right, I may want that to say coming up next, but obviously coming up next, I might use that quite frequently. I might have coming up next over here and coming up next over here. Right, well, I can copy and I can move to another place in the timeline and I can paste. And you can do all of this in ScreenFlow. I'm just choosing to do it in here, but it really doesn't matter. And there it is. Comes back on. So that's good as far as it goes, but even better than that. And this is the main reason, to be honest, that I use Camtasia. It has the most amazing library system. So one thing I could do here, you can see I've got annotations, I've got some stuff from Envato, I have full screens, I have highlights and focus and icons. So one thing I could do, let's say I wanted, this was about, iWork. I could nip into one of my lower thirds, double clicking on it. And now I've truncated that somewhat, so I'll extend it a little bit. Right, I could go in here and say, well, we talked about pages earlier, didn't we? So I could put my pages logo on it, and I could have that, obviously much smaller than that. About there, maybe. Be good if it just covered the end of that. Excellent. Right, so I could have that appearing. What I've then got to think about is, and where exactly do you want that to appear? How do you want that to work? Well, this shape's going to come in, isn't it? And then the call-out's going to start building itself. So if I put the logo up to the end of the call-out, does my subscription allow me to use the Windows version as well? Yes, it does, Neil. Which is hugely expensive. So actually, it's a very cost-effective solution for me. Yes, it does. What I tend to do is record anything on Windows that I need to do, and then bring out what's called the T-Rec, which is a TechSmith recording file, and I bring it into the Mac version, and I edit it on the Mac. Mike did a whole piece about using the Windows version and the Mac version together and working cross-platform, which he'll find the link for. Let's give him something to do. I think it was on your blog, and if not, it was in a MacBites episode. Right, so at this point, what's going to happen is the call-out's going to start fading in, but the Pages icon just, boom, appears. What we could do with is it coming in at exactly the same pace as the call-out does. Well, by clicking on the arrow and then copying and going up to the icon and pasting, you can copy and paste an animation or a transition. It's amazing. So if we now take it back to the beginning, make sure nothing's selected so we can see it. Comes in, that's still coming in. What's going on? It's copied it, but what it hasn't done, I didn't set the opacity of it down to 0. So let's try that once more. There we go. Excellent. And it's still locked in that little block there. So if we play it again there, comes in, everything appears. And what's even better, I could then in here add it to the library. So that lower third, I could right click it and say add to library. Which library? The default one, the one I'm using. Call it lower third, click add. And now it's going to be available to any file that I choose to open, and all I would need to do is drag and drop it in. So if I was working in a completely new file, so let's say a new project, completely new project, and I go to my library, there's my lower third, and all I would need to do is drag it on and away I go. And it works. There we go. Brilliant. So that's lower thirds. So really, I guess what I'm talking about here is I'm emphasising the working independent of the application, to be honest. Now, the second thing is even more important in terms of working independently, thanks to Apple and every other tablet manufacturer. Right, let's say we're demonstrating an iPad, which I will be demonstrating an iPad next week. That's why this has come up right now. So I'm going to start off with ScreenFlow. ScreenFlow works when it feels like it with this. So let's just get a blank bit of the screen. I want to do something incredibly simple. I need to have on the screen something to indicate I'm tapping an icon on an iPad. And the usual way I do that is with a red dot. And I even have a red dot. I don't know where I've actually put it, but I have a red dot that I do that with, which is probably, it was on my desktop. There it is. It's a file just called dot. And it's bright red at 50% transparency. And it's a PDF. And the reason it's a PDF is that makes it vector, which means I can scale it and I don't lose any quality. Fabulous. What I need to do to be able to use it is go into the assets and you can see there's .pdf. And it looks fab, doesn't it? Perfect. Round dot. Transparent. Great. So all I would need to do is add that over here. Oh, it doesn't like that, which is ridiculous. Why have you just deleted it? This worked before. Right, I've added it in again from my file system and I've added it in on there and there it is, dot. And if we look, what are you doing to me? It's not transparent. That's one of the problems with ScreenFlow. It does not let me use PDFs with transparency. It will let me drag and drop a PDF in at last, but not transparent PDF. So absolutely useless to me. I could still do it if I had a PNG or a TIFF that supported transparency. But they don't want me to do that anyway. No. They've already added this in for me. They have got a whole feature here called Touch Callout. It's supposed to be fabulous. Let's have a look at it. So that's the whole canvas. Let me move this down a little bit. Oh, I'm working with such a tiny screen. You shouldn't even be there. That's better. I'll make it a little bit better. Like that. Come on. Right. So that's my canvas. What they want me to do is have my video of an iPad and add a call out. That's what they want. You need to add that to a video. So as you can see, if I don't have a video selected, I can't add a touch call out. It needs to be attached to a video. So there's my video. So if we're going to see it, we're going to need to see that, aren't we? This was me earlier, which is why it looks a little bit meta. It's a video of this. But now I've got a video selected, they'll let me add an action to it. By default, it looks like that. And there is the action in the middle. So let's zoom in so we can actually see the action. There it is. Not very inspiring because it's grey for a start, but never mind. Now, by default, that's what they do with it. It's there. So that little yellow bit there is the touch call out. That's it. and it will appear. So if I move back there, press play, it will appear and it will disappear. It's not fantastic in terms of the fact it's not, it just appears and goes away. It doesn't fade in and fade out, but never mind, it's there. One of the great things with it is there is an option to use the count. And what that will do is add multiple dots. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, or back to 1. So you've got up to 4. Well, that's great. And I could change the colour. So I could make it red if I wanted to. I can change the size of it. I can change the opacity of it. I can put an outline on it. So it seems fantastic, doesn't it? And it's not bad if that's what you want. But again, I don't. The reason that I don't is I need complete control of this, and there is a reason. If you know what that reason is, put it in the chat. But there is a very, very good reason why not. But I'll show you what this does first, and then I'll explain why I don't use it. But if you already twigged why I don't use it, let me know. Right, one of the things you can do is have a start and end state. What that should do, let me zoom out. Has it done something? No, it hasn't, has it? It will allow me to do that. So let's put that there first and then turn it on. Callout has an end state. So that dot is the end state. This here is the start state. That is the end state. So basically it should appear here and it should move over there. That's the plan. And as you can see, it works when it feels like it. I swear it does. If you come out of it, so it changes colour slightly, you should be able to see it move. There you go. I still don't think that's fantastic, but there is another reason. So again, if you know what that reason is, but that's what it can do by itself. Now, if it can do that and it can move, and if we double click and go into it, and if we had that with two of them, we could say, right, well, it's going to start up there. I'm going to do a down swipe. So start at the cross, finish at the dot. Let's see that. Fabulous. Why on earth wouldn't I use that? Because I don't have to worry about handling any of this manually. Why on earth wouldn't I use that? Well, there is a very, very good reason. For a start, how it does it in ScreenFlow is not how it does it in Camtasia. So I've got to keep two methods in my head. They don't even look similar between the two applications, but there's something far more fundamental than that. I don't know if you're aware, but there are some new gestures in iPad OS, and we'll be covering them all next week, which is why this has come up at the moment. One of the gestures is a four-fingered, or is it three-fingered? Three-fingered swipe left and a three-fingered swipe right. Well, that's not a problem. We've already seen that. All we need to do is go from 2 to 3, and instead of finishing underneath, finish over there. And that would be a three-fingered swipe to the right. So let's come out of that and play it. Perfect. Perfect. A little bit rough at the end, but perfect. So what on earth's my problem? Well, one of the other gestures is a pinch in and a pinch out. And the idea is you pinch in to copy with 3 fingers and you pinch out to paste with 3 fingers. Okay, so let's go back in and do that then. No can do. These are in a line and they are staying in a line. There's no way that I can drag one of them out or whatever. So I'd start having to do this with 2 or 3 different actions, touch callouts. I'd need to add 3 touch callouts, and I'd need to manually say for each dot, start here and finish there, start here and finish there. I mean, really? If I'm going to do that, I might as well do it and do it once and be done with it. So that's why I do it manually. One, it lets me decide whether they're all lined up together, whether they're slightly off centre, what colours they are. I've got complete control. But how do you do that manually? Well, that's what you get in ScreenFlow. Let me show you what you get in Camtasia. It's even worse. They do have in here, what do they call them in here? Not visual effects, is it? It is video something or other. Is it cursor effects? No, you're not cursor effects. You're in there somewhere. I know you are. Not that either. Do you know I only did this before? Where are you hiding from me? No, it's in there. Where have you put it? It's not in cursor effects. I know it's not. Because that is cursor effects or left mouse clicks or right mouse clicks. I think it's visual effects. Down there somewhere. Let's have a look. Device frames, glows, keystrokes. No, it's a hotspot. Oh no! Don't disappear on me. It's a good job it's diabolical anyway, because it doesn't work great anyway. So I'm just going to show you the manual way that I do it. Right. You saw that I had a red dot. I do indeed have a red dot. Let me show you the red dot. Recent red dots. There we go. Dot. Now, obviously I have coloured this, and I could use shapes. But by doing it in here, I get complete control. Now I can have a whole library of these things. So all that is a circle on an artboard that's exported to a PDF. So there's the export to PDF. It's exactly the same file as you saw before. And I have it as a PDF. Right, so the first thing I would do is drag that onto my canvas. This is another reason why I use Camtasia. You'll notice as soon as I start dragging this on, it starts aligning it for me. So I have at the moment one dot. One lonely dot. Right. Good night, Graham. Oh, mango chunks and an Eccles cake. I'm not big on mango, you know. I might have to try mango. Now what are we having? Oh, fruit. We've got another fresh fruit salad. But I doubt Lola will be partaking of that. So good night, Graham. Right, so I've added one dot. And this now becomes just the same as anything else that I add and can use. And I can manipulate it in exactly the same way. So I've got the one dot. Let's zoom into my dot. There's my dot. There's the dot. And I'm going to copy and paste. And now I've got two dots. And they are aligned right next to each other. And I'm going to do a third dot. So if what I wanted was exactly what we'd got before, that's no problem. I can do that. All I'm going to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, using the arrow keys just to move that. So there's a gap between them of 10. But the beauty of this method is I have complete control. And I do like having complete control. Right, so I've got my 3. What I would then do is group them together. And I now have a group. And this is going to be my, that's what the group looks like. It's got my dots in there. But this is going to be my 3-fingered swipe. So we'll say there, swipe, 3 fingers, right. Now, how do we do that? Because at the moment, it's just there. And that's it. It could do with some animation, couldn't it? It could do with moving from across its lifetime, from start to finish. But it could also do with fading in gently and appearing in that kind of way. So let's get the animation on it first. You've seen animation. We just put a custom animation on it. So we'll make it quite quick so it appears quite quickly from the very beginning. And I will copy that and I will put that at the end as well. Because at the beginning, the opacity needs to be 0. At the end, the opacity needs to be 0, which it looks like there. Right. In the middle, not 0. So we've managed to get that faded up. Then it sits there and then it fades down. So that's half done. It's got that on it, but we've not got the move on it yet. But if in the middle we put a custom move on it, so another animation, right? So at this point, it sits there for a little bit, and then we want it to do something. Then it sits there for another little bit, and then it fades out to nothing. So we've got 3 animations on the one thing there. Right, we need to move to the left of the middle animation. And yes, that's where it needs to be. Then move to the right of it. And at the end of its animation, it's going to be over there. And that is all there is to it. It appears, it moves, it sits, it fades. Now it did whiz back. That's not good. That is because when I did the end bit, what I really should have done was leave it alone at this point. Right, let's have it moving in there. Right, I should have taken this to get the duration of it and put that on last. That would have been better. So it moves to there, I move to here, and it does actually disappear. You do, but you need to go down to 0. That's what you need. Let's see that. Moves. Stops. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. But that's going to be a pain, isn't it? Because now I need one moving the other way, and I need a 4-fingered swipe, and I need the other gesture in, and I might need to repurpose it as well. Well, not too much of an issue, to be honest, because we could just... I'm going to actually do the difficult one. All I need to do with that is duplicate it, and then at the end, where it starts on the left, have it start on the right, and then the animation will then go the other way like that. So that's simple. What's not quite so simple is what on earth do I do with this 3-fingered pinch in and the 3-fingered pinch out? ScreenFlow can't do it, Camtasia can't do it. This is because Apple have added these gestures and the software hasn't kept up with it. So the software can't help you. So relying on the software is not the best idea. That's why I don't. So what I'm going to do, I will drag the first dot in. I will copy and paste. So I've got 3 dots. And then I'll place them where they need to be. So we're going to do, first of all, the 3-fingered swipe in. So we've got our 3 dots. Now, each one is going to need to move independent of the other. We could actually do with knowing at this stage where it's going to end up. So let's put in another dot there and say they need to end up where that dot there is. Just to make that slightly different, I'm going to change the opacity so I know that that's the one that I'm not animating. Don't want that to move. But I do want the others to move. So these 3 need to move. So at the beginning, right, of these 3 here, we're going to need animations. We are going to need to go into the animations and add a custom animation to it. So something needs to happen at that point. Then something else needs to happen, so we need another custom animation. So exactly what we did before, across there, and then something else needs to happen. So let's start making the something happen, which is, this needs to start with an opacity of 0. And then it needs to be seen. And then when we get to this end, at that point, it needs to be somewhere else. It needs to be there. And then taking the same amount of time, so copying that and pasting that in, pushing it up to the end. From there to there at the end, it needs to be not there at all. So let's have a look at that one. Fades in, moves, fades out. Excellent. Right, that's that one done. Very simple to do the rest. Just take that of the first one, which will give you the right duration. And now we're working on the top one here. And at this point, it needs to not be there. So change the opacity. Then move in and it becomes available. So I'm going to take that one for the duration and paste that in. Move that up so it matches that. You can see it even snaps to let you know it does. Across the duration of that, it needs to move in. So there you go. That is actually moving very nicely. And then that one needs to fade out. So put it on there and have it fade out towards the end. Not bad at all. Excellent. Right, and then go on to the last one. So again, copy the first bit, move it back to the beginning and paste that in. At that point, it's at 100%. By the time it gets to there, we need it to be 0 at the beginning. By the time it gets to there, it needs to be 100%, which it isn't. So let's put that back in. Is that working? It is. That becomes available. We then need to move up to the next one, grab the middle one, copy it, and paste. Line that up. Let's move that in. Excellent. And then we just need the end. So copy, paste it onto the end one. I did copy. Why you no paste? Do you need to be more over here? That's better. And let's move that out of the way. At that point, are you going to fade to nothing? You are. Fabulous. So at this point, I can get rid of that dot because that one, if you remember, was just the placeholder, that dot there. So I can get rid of that. And we've just created something that no application can do automatically. There we go. So let's take these two, three, sorry. Let's group them, which is Command and G. Change it, the name, rename to, this was a pinch in. Pinch in. And obviously you'd do the exact opposite in reverse and you'd do a pinch out. You'd start with them in the middle and then you'd have them move back to where they started at the beginning of the pinch in. But what makes it even better is to go back to this library. You know we had the lower third. You can also in here add a folder. So I'm going to add a folder for gestures. And what I would then do with my pinch in, I would add it to the library, just the default. I would go to this one and I would add it to the library. And anything else that I wanted to add to the library, anything else that I'd built, I would just add them into the library. Take this up to gestures. Take the swipe up to gestures. And again, I am never going to have to worry about that again. I can actually delete these off the timeline completely. And when I want a pinch in, I can bring it in. Now, that pinch in, not bad. But it's taking all of that time and maybe you want to do that much quicker. Well, you've got a couple of options. You can go in here. You could shorten the whole thing, but that way you're actually changing it and you'd have to do it on every one of them. Another option you've got with the visual effects is you can change a clip speed. Did I have to put that on all of them? I do believe I did. So this is one option. I can add the clip speed and then in here take that down. So I've got exactly the same. Let's take it to 1.6 and 1.6 and 1.6. And now it will do the whole timeline thing, but it will do it much quicker. Now, if you decide that you prefer that one, you prefer it faster, then of course you can go back to your library and you could add that in as a pinch in instead of the other one. So add to library. Pinch in goes to the bottom. Go to that top one, delete it. Yes, I'm positive. Get the new pinch in and put that in with the gestures. And there you go. So that's why I don't use any of the built-in options in any screen recording application or video recording application. Now, if you're thinking, well, that's great as far as it goes, but what if you wanted to take something you've built in Camtasia or ScreenFlow and now you're using Final Cut Pro? Well, one option you've got is in here, just export these as MOVs. If you took away the background, so let's move it to the end. Be a good idea, wouldn't it? Let's take that all the way to the end over there. So we haven't got anything else going on. And there's your gesture. There's nothing to stop you exporting just that bit there. So mark an in, mark an out, which is what you're doing there. And you could actually export that with a transparent background and it would work in any video application whatsoever. So this is why I don't bother. Because even if you've got the most amazing built-in feature, it does you absolutely no good whatsoever if Apple decide to introduce a new gesture and there's no support for it. So know how to build your own. It makes life far easier in the long run. Right, in the last video editing tip, I think I had a file. Oh, is this one called Untitled? That's jolly good, isn't it? That definitely wasn't the file I was using for that. Let me find the file I was using for that, which was a recent project on unboxing. That was the one. So what I've got with this is I did an unboxing, something I needed to use. So there's my unboxing. But normally, well, when I would use this feature, you've seen me use it live. It's called Picture in Picture, and it's where you have a small picture and then something larger that you're showing. Now, obviously, with this unboxing, all I wanted to actually use this video for was to show you a picture in picture, but I want you to imagine that I've got an iPad on the screen or something. But this video is a live video, and let's say it's me when you're looking at where my hand is on the iPad. It couldn't be easier to get that picture in picture. So what I've got here is my screen behind it. So that would be my demonstration area. And I've got this video slap bang on the top of it. But all you need to do for picture in picture is just scale that to the size you want and then place it wherever you want. I mean, it couldn't be easier, could it? And yet, that's one of the things I get so many questions about. How did you do the picture in picture? It's not difficult. It's really that easy, honestly. Have you got that link, Mike? It was in a MacBites and you did a whole...
It wasn't. It was in after I was 16.
Oh, I thought you did it in MacBites too, working cross-platform. You did. You definitely did. I remember you doing it. Either you have done or you're going to. One or the other. I thought you'd actually done a blog post on it. You definitely did in MacBites. Do you not remember? Do a Command and P on Notion. And put cross-platform in. I'm having to hold his hand here, literally. Does Camtasia come up?
Camtasia working cross-platform.
Yes, open that. What show was that?
After I was 16.
Are you sure you didn't do it in a MacBites? 16 was a while ago, wasn't it? Yeah, Mike did show working with it, but I thought we talked about it as well on a MacBites.
MacBites 120.
There you go. And that was much more detailed. We'll put the links in. Yeah, put the links in. There you go. So picture in picture couldn't be easier. You just have another layer or another track. So this one here, which is, it's got the audio and video in of that unboxing, and you literally just place it where you need it. Now, why have I put it up there and not down here, like a lot of people do? Well, mainly you should be seeing a watermark on my screen right now. It's in the lower right hand corner and it would be right on top of the video, so I tend to leave a gap. I have in my library, I have watermarks. Here are my watermarks. Watermark, lower left, right, upper left, and this one would be the lower right. So drag that onto there. There it is. Not helpful, in totally the wrong place, but I will, there's my watermark, stretch it out and put it in the right place, which is there. And you can just about see it, that lower corner there. Trying to zoom into it, and I'm already zoomed into such a degree, but there you go, there's my watermark. So I would want my video to avoid that. But all this is, although you think of it as being something magical or something different because it's a video, it's just another layer, it's just another track of content, and it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether that video is there and this is your demo in the background or vice versa. Interestingly, you could even switch from one to another. So let's say you start off and you're doing a talking head maybe. So you start off and you're full screen with that video. But at some point, you want to not be full screen with it. So say at that point there. Well, you've already seen that you've got animations. Your custom animation is your friend. Stick it on there. At the beginning of it, you want that to be full screen. But at the end of it, you don't want it to be full screen. You want it to be picture in picture. And you want it to be about there. You go back to that side and you literally just play it. Let me get a little bit nearer. There we go. You're not doing this for me. Hang on. Are we on the right bit? We definitely should be. Let me zoom out a bit. Oh, you seem to jump from one to another. Why are you doing that? You should not be jumping. Take it that way. That's better. Maybe it just wasn't long enough. See it shrinking down? There we go. So that is how you do picture in picture. You may also have where you want your demo to be small and scale up. Well, it's just the complete opposite of that. Exactly the same principle. So that's picture in picture. Now, let me have a look. Picture in picture, just, yep, we've managed to do all of those. So let me come out of that. I'm going to put it down there because I am actually recording with Camtasia right now. So it's a miracle it didn't crash. It is really a miracle. Now, that would have helped if I'd have done that properly, but never mind. Right, the Stream Deck. Who remembers the Stream Deck? We looked at it last time. It was the unboxing last time. The idea of a Stream Deck is it's part of a control surface system. As far as I'm concerned, it's got 32 customizable keys, and that was what I was interested in. And you can see there that they do have. It's not just where you cut out some keys and you know on paper and you lift the lid off and you put them in. No. It's much better than that. Those graphics that you see are actual graphic files like PNGs that have been added into the system. But there is magic needed to make this work. Never mind it's easy to set up. It is easy to set up if you are only intending to use it with supported applications. Now, there are plenty of supported applications. The Stream Deck software, and thus the Stream Deck, will talk directly to Ecamm Live. There is a plugin that will let it talk to Wirecast. It has no concept of Hindenburg, which is my audio editor, and that's what I wanted to use it for. So, I needed a conduit between the two, and that's going to be Keyboard Maestro, which has been mentioned a few times. Now, it's a Mac-only application. I'm sure there are Windows equivalents, though. I say it's the app on my Mac that I very seldom interact with directly, but it fixes stuff when somebody else breaks it. And what I mean by that is, you'll get an app and all of a sudden it isn't doing a certain thing. And they've taken a feature that worked perfectly well on one shortcut key. And now it's on 9 and it's going to take you a lot longer. For instance, I used to use Opera, and Opera had a paste and go feature. Opera's a browser. So if you've got a URL on your keyboard, you could just click on Opera, use Command and D, and boom, you were done. No other browser supported that at the time, and I couldn't believe it. So I made that feature in Keyboard Maestro. Now, Hindenburg was going to be tricky, going to be very, very tricky. This is a keyboard that they sell, dedicated for Hindenburg. You can see just how many shortcut keys. Now, I didn't think it was worth getting the keyboard. It's $99.99 and I would have been tempted, but it's not Bluetooth and wouldn't help you working with other applications. But you can see from that just how many shortcut keys there were. Now, the alarming thing with Hindenburg is when you look at its menus, and these are Hindenburg's menus, and yes, I have counted. Your file menus basically open a file. Okay, there's new, there's save, but basically open a file or import some audio. Your edit is fairly basic as well. When one of the menus is emojis, not exactly useful in the editing department. So there isn't anything in there that's like ripple deletes and stuff. That's not there. Standard audio editing options are not there. Your view options are basically talking about turning toolbars on or looking at clipboards or markers. Again, nothing really to do with the editing, is there? The tools, all 2 of them. This isn't looking good, is it? If you looked at the price of Hindenburg and you looked at the menus, you'd be thinking it's a joke. And the Windows menu there's nothing on there at all. And there's the help. There were 39 options I counted. But the thing is, that is only a fraction of what it can do. And I really mean that. They have a dedicated manual. This is it. Of all the keyboard shortcuts. So I'm actually going to show you that file. I shouldn't have pressed that button. I definitely should not have pressed that button. Right, I'm going to show you that file. And just so you can see how long it actually is. How many options they provide absolutely no interface for. You either know the shortcut key or you don't. And if you don't, you're not using the feature. Which is not great, is it? Call it an incentive to learn them. So I'm opening up this shortcut thing. It's 12 pages of very tightly listed shortcuts. And this is just the Mac version. The Windows one has just as many. So, for instance, the selection for in and out, there's no menu option for it. There's no menu options for any of this. None of it. So you either have to memorize it or have this pinned to the wall. Memorizing it is what I think they expect you to do. But it is not as featureless as you would imagine. It can do all of these things. But you need to know all of those shortcuts to make it do it. Now, obviously, there's more than 32. Some of them I instantly know. B is the blade command and Command and S is save. The basic stuff is there. But there's also a lot of stuff that isn't there. So that's what I'm trying to shoehorn into my Stream Deck. That's the plan. So I want the Stream Deck to talk directly to Hindenburg. I've tried that, doesn't work. Doesn't work at all. Which is not helpful in any way, shape or form, I'm afraid. But this is where Keyboard Maestro comes in. Now, we talked about demonstrating Keyboard Maestro, and I said I would, but I also said, if you're going to demonstrate Keyboard Maestro, it's really important that you've got something genuine to show it with. Otherwise, it just becomes like, well, you could do this or you could do that. And it's all a bit gratuitous. But the fact that we need these 2 things to talk to each other, and they're going to talk to each other through Keyboard Maestro, makes it worthwhile showing that demo. Also, it took a lot of applications to make this work. So if you're thinking, I don't have a Stream Deck, I'm not buying a Stream Deck, I've no desire to watch a demo of somebody configuring a Stream Deck, think again, because it took all of these things to actually make it work. Now, you're probably wondering why. Well, the top icon in the left-hand side is the Stream Deck software. But next to that, we've got Affinity Publisher. What on earth could I be using that for? Well, I obviously needed a list of the commands that were so important that they would be worthy of having a button on my Stream Deck. And it got really messy really fast, and I decided in the end I'd do a table, and we'd do it that way. Then, of course, I needed to design the actual icons, and for that I was going to use Affinity Designer. Then I still had a problem, and the problem I then came up against was with so many keyboard shortcuts available to me, which ones did I think were so important to put them in there? And I ended up making a list of the ones I thought were important in Google Sheets. Then we've got Keyboard Maestro. That's the glue that holds it together. And then, of course, there's Hindi at the end that I'm going to edit in. So that's what we're going to be using. Let me come out of this and show you that. So to start with, there was Affinity Publisher. So let's go into Affinity Publisher and have a look at that file to start with. You've seen a photo of the Stream Deck. I'll get the video on when it's logical to do so, she said, hopefully. Right, I need to open my file, which was in here, and hopefully it's called Hindi. Ooh, let's try Hind. Hind. No, not HD. Hind. No, not on there. In there. It's not doing a good job of this at all, is it? Where's it actually looking at the moment? Because I don't want... No, this is ridiculous, Mike. It's actually seeing the iCloud folder now. You couldn't make this up. This is the machine that couldn't see the iCloud folder for that to save its life. So I'm going in here. Which Stream Deck model am I going to use? I'm going to use the XL model, which has 32 buttons. Right, I'm looking for what I actually did with it, which I'm assuming I would have called Hindi. Hind. Oh, come on. Buttons. Yes, but... Oh, dear, this is so infuriating. This is so infuriating. Let it be one of the ones I opened. Oh, look at that, it is. And it does help. I didn't call it Hindi. Right, this was what I did in Affinity Publisher. I've got 32 buttons to go at. So this was my very first pass at creating something that I could print out. I tried doing it, as you can see, by just typing in functions that I wanted to appear on certain buttons. It didn't work. It needed to be analog. There was just something about it that needed to be analog. I'm actually reaching across and finding it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try showing it you. Let's see how this works, she said. Right, where's that? Excellent. I'm going to do a live picture-in-picture, which could be very interesting, but let's have a look. Let's see how that goes. So this is me live. There's the Stream Deck. So this is what we'll actually be using. Hopefully it'll wake up a bit by then. It's not actually, well, it is turning on, but you're just not seeing much. So that's what I'll actually be using. But what I needed, I had a whole little file. Look at it all. It's all analog. All my notes of all the stuff, all the features that were worthy of it, and my grid. That was my grid that I did, and I did it all by hand. What I did do was print out that, and that came from Affinity Publisher. So sometimes you just need to go analog for something. But it used a feature, and let's whip back to just my Mac. We'll be back with that camera shortly. It used a feature that we're not really demoed before. So let's add another page in and show you how I did that. Right, I took the decision that I was going to print this out to paper by hand. So I wanted in here to use the majority of the space I had. So instead of it having an inch margin, I only wanted 10 millimeters all the way around. So by changing the margins, it gave me a working area I could work to. Then I needed a grid, and you can draw out a table like this. But of course, if you're trying to fill that area, that's way more than 32. That's not good. No, I needed 8 across the top and 4 down. And the way to do that is to pull it out so you actually do get 8. So I've got 8 columns. Then pull it down so I've got 4 rows. Now I know that's not filling the screen, but at that point you can leave it, because you can then go back and use the blue handles for it to fill the screen. Now you might think, you're ready to print. You would be ready to print, but of course the first pass that I did, which was this, I decided, oh no, I'll type it all in. And to type it all in, if I was going in here and putting on that one, ripple delete, I ended up with that. So obviously I had problems with the layout of the text. So what I did with that, with the whole table selected, I went for centered, which it already is, but in this one here, which is top align, I went for center vertically. And because I've got the whole thing selected, that should be fine if I go into all of the others. So J, K and L, like that. So that was what I did with Affinity Publisher. It was very simple. Previously, I would probably have used Pages for that, maybe Numbers. But Affinity Publisher handled it beautifully. So I just ended up with something that I printed out and drew all over, actually in pencil. And I even had an eraser, and I actually rubbed stuff out as I was going along and changed my mind. So that was the bit that I did in Affinity Publisher. Once I'd got that, my next task was to go into Google Sheets. So let's get Firefox up and go to Google Sheets, which you don't spell like that. Google Sheets. And I'll let you see the actual spreadsheet that I created with it when it finally loads in. Right, I called it Stream Deck Configuration. This is what it looked like. Right, it got complicated. I was very glad that I had this. It started off really simple. It started off with function. Oh, having problems with a large table in Publisher. Not good. Is it slowing down? Is it giving errors? What's it doing? Because I've seen some really advanced stuff done with that, and I've not actually had any problems. But knowing your stuff is going to be really complicated, isn't it? Right, I started off with just the function and the shortcut. Then I realised I could do with categorising them, which was what the type was at the end where it says transport. But in the end, you'll see I didn't fill all of that in over there. My rationale was I'll go back and do that because I realised as I started working with it, I needed to seriously think about what I would automatically do with the mouse and the keyboard that I wouldn't particularly need on the Stream Deck. I actually ended up not with the functions on there I thought I would, like the forward and rewind. You can see that's not on there. I then added in all these columns. This is Keyboard Maestro, whether it's in Keyboard Maestro. The X means have you actually created it yet? So that's in there too. I cannot remember for the life of me what R and C was, but it'll come to me. And then whether it was a toggle or not. And that made a difference to what I put into Keyboard Maestro. So some things are toggles. If you press the space bar, it plays, and then if you press it again, it pauses. The H key, it zooms you in and it zooms you out. So I was very careful making a note of whether they were toggles or not. You can also see some of them, although the commands are actually listed, so spacebar, right arrow, left arrow, I for in, O for out, home to go to the start, the end, you'll also notice that some of them say Keyboard Maestro. Well, they say KM. So that's KM, that's KM. That's because delete from all tracks and ripple delete from all tracks can't actually be done with one shortcut key. And that's where Keyboard Maestro, I use it the most. When an application cannot do something with a single shortcut key, I will program Keyboard Maestro to do it. So I'll show you some of those when we actually look at Keyboard Maestro. But some of the others were fairly straightforward. So Command and E, Command and U, Command and S. I took the decision that although I do export my audio and I do publish my audio, that's a one-off job I do at the end of it, and therefore that functionality did not deserve a button of its own. So that was the decision I took. Even these focus on things here, I didn't put those on either because there's something that I just don't do that often. So that was what I did with Google Sheets. And that became so important as I was actually working through it. I was constantly referring to that list on an iPad, and I had the piece of paper in front of me. And I was saying yes to some things, no to others. So that's what I did with that part of it. Right, the next part, of course, was Keyboard Maestro. So if you've never seen Keyboard Maestro, this is what it does. So I'll show you the Hindenburg stuff. There's a few things in Hindenburg. It's very quirky. Very, very quirky. So you can see one of the things I've done there is I've wired the key, Command and H, to hide it. Really? Doesn't every Mac app hide when you use Command and H? Not Hindenburg, no. There is an option on the menu to do that. So let's open up Hindenburg. Oh, test. I wonder what that is. It'll do. No, we don't want to use that. Yeah, this was just me playing around and testing. In fact, this was what I was doing. This was the file I was actually using when I was programming it. Now, what's happened? Something has happened the second I activated Hindenburg. So I'm going to show you, hopefully, by holding this up to the camera, what happens when I do that. So let me just share my screen again. So this is the Stream Deck. As I go over and I click on Hindenburg, it wakes up and there's all the programming that I did. And I made all of those icons as well. So you will have a look at this as I go through this demo. We'll get to a point where you can actually see how that is actually done. So let's go back to without that for the moment. I'm pretty much doing that so we don't have stream problems because YouTube clearly can't cope with us. Okay, so in here, if you go to Hindenburg and you go to hide Hindenburg, it does actually say Command and H, but it doesn't. Because the H key also acts as a zoom key. H zooms you in and it zooms you out. So I actually had to program that. And I did that in Keyboard Maestro. So that's what I mean when I say Keyboard Maestro fixes stuff that every other developer breaks. Oh, there's a good question. Why not Notion instead of Sheets? I didn't feel that I needed the depth of Notion. I just needed a quick and dirty table that would allow me to put that information in. It wasn't something I was going to refer to in the future. I mean, I could take it into Notion, but I felt at the point that I realised I needed a spreadsheet as well, I was already fairly analog with a piece of paper. So I just threw it into a spreadsheet. I may take it into Notion if it's something that I decide I want to work on in other ways. I could well do that, but just not at the moment. And the other thing was, so we had the hide. The other one was adding a chapter and renaming it. And as you can see, this is how it works, Keyboard Maestro. I'm going to hit edit. You put in individual steps. You tell it what to do. That one's not actually active, but you tell it what to actually do. So if I wanted to add a chapter marker, I had to use Shift, Command and Return. That actually put me in a chapter marker. Then I had to go to the menu and choose View Chapters. And then I needed to press Return. So I needed to do 3 things. And I could never remember all 3 things. So by putting in the list of the 3 things in here, so step 1, step 2, and step 3, I mean, that's just not needed at all. I have absolutely no idea why that's there. Nope, no idea at all. So seeing as though that's not active, let's simplify the whole thing and delete it. So let's get rid of that. Right. There's 3 things that I was doing, but in Keyboard Maestro, I've added another one, which is just telling it to wait for 1 second just to make sure the menu, that it has the right focus, that the menu is activated and it's now focusing the right area, that when I press return, it will work. So what I was doing with that was I was going in here, later, not now, don't update now, and I needed to add a chapter marker to that point there. And it was a 3-step process. But now it's a 1-step process. And I can put in my new chapter marker. And I just press escape and then I'm back and I'm editing my audio and there's my chapter marker right at the top. Now that's got absolutely nothing to do with the Stream Deck. That was what I was doing before the Stream Deck arrived. So there was only two things in Hindi that I'd actually fixed. One was the hide and one was the chapter markers. But you can see listed on the left-hand side here loads of applications, absolutely loads of applications. And these are all the applications that I have created, macros if you want to call them that, to do things. All of these. So let's have a look at the browsers. I want to copy the URL and I want to do it really quickly. And you can do it with two shortcut keys. Command and L focuses the address bar and Command and C copies. But I like to have it on one shortcut key. Remember when I mentioned that paste and go? Well, I have that assigned to a shortcut key there. It might look a difficult shortcut key to you, but I've been using it for years. What it does is focus the URL bar, pastes, and then types return. So let's just show you that. Let's open up Chrome. What I might want to do is copy that URL, which would be Command and L, Command and C. It's not arduous, but it's two things to do instead of one. Right, the other way to do that is the way that I've done it, which is Command, Shift and C. And that does the two things. It's copied it. I then go into my browser. Now, actually, you can see it's already focused at the top. And what I'd need to do is Command and V and Enter. But sometimes it's not focused. So I could be here and the URL bar is not focused. So the first thing I'd need to do is focus it and then go there. But if I use my magic shortcut key, it does the lot, does all of it. It focuses it, it pastes it, and then it presses Enter. That's the kind of thing you can do with Keyboard Maestro. But you'll see I have Hindenburg, and I also have Hindenburg Stream Deck. Now, before we take a look at how this actually works, we need to see the Stream Deck. So I'm going to move that out of the way and actually look at the Stream Deck software, which is there. Now, by default, I don't have this doing anything. So I've actually got a Stream Deck command that's set to blank. These are all the buttons, but they're all blank. But I also have a default profile, which has a little welcome message in it. And if I actually just show you that so you can see it. Now, Mike, if you let me know if the stream starts getting creaky, all right, I can actually show you what that looks like. There's one button on it, and it's actually got the welcome button on it. So that's what it looks like. And I've also got up there the Hindenburg profile, which is all of them, all lit up. And I've got some spare over here, which we'll be looking at. But basically, if I go back to the default one, and we've got this welcome in it, if we look down the right-hand side, these are all the applications that are natively supported. So you can see down there, you've got Ecamm Live, and there's custom stuff. There's Twitter. You could actually hook it up with Twitter and send a tweet. Or you could do OBS, which is broadcast software. You can hit record, you can stream, you can change the source with it, and you literally just have to do that with it to make that work. You drag and drop the buttons on there. So that's what they mean when they say it's easy to program. That's it. That's all you have to do. Obviously, in that list, no Hindenburg. Nothing to do with Hindenburg. Now, there is an option at the bottom for more actions. So if we hit that, these are all of the things that you can do or download, and some of these are extra. So this is a list that's growing all the time. Apple Mail has appeared, something called SoundFlow. So there's new things being added all the time. What else have we got? Stocks? No, not useful. The clock one's actually quite cute. It puts a clock on a button. That's all it does. It just puts a clock on a button. So if you're full screen with something and you can't see what time it is, of course you'd have an Apple Watch, wouldn't you? You've got the time on the button. So that's what you've got in there. And you'll notice that at the bottom you have Keyboard Maestro. Trigger a macro in Keyboard Maestro. And I've installed that. That's why it says uninstall. So having installed that, that allowed me to do some magic. So what I did with it, putting that down on the table now, let's go back to the other one. What I actually did with it was, if I go into my Hindi profile, I went in here to automation, and there's only one option, and that's Keyboard Maestro, and I dragged and dropped that. And that gave me the settings at the bottom, which is you can put a title on it. So if we put my button, you can actually see it appearing on the button face. And more to the point, that is exactly what the button looks like. So you get a preview there, but you also actually get that on the button. I'm trying to tip that so you can see it. Whatever you see in this interface is exactly what you see in the button. So I wonder if I can get that down there. Can we see that from that? We can, can't we? Right, I'll leave that there. So, and you can take these away from here, so you can just put them in the bin. So what I actually ended up with when I'd finished was that I deliberately only did 28. My rationale for doing 28 instead of the 32 I could do was if I wanted to allow drill down, I could maybe put them on those extra buttons. And what I mean by drill down is that you tap a button and it drills you down a layer and you get another 32 buttons to play with. But in terms of hooking it up, you don't even need a macro in Keyboard Maestro to do it. All you need to do is drag and drop the Keyboard Maestro command onto the button and you're done. So when I did this, I literally did that 32 times and put it on there. You can have a title, and as you've seen, I put my button and it appeared. But you can have a title and not show it. So just for your own reference, you can do that. If you're showing a title, you can have it across the bottom, the middle, or the top, wherever makes most sense to you. And you can change the font face and the size, and whether it's bold, italic, underline, and colour. So you've got quite a few options when it comes to putting the title on there. Then you have a button ID. And the button ID is by row. So it's row 4 and it's column 1. And that's what the button ID is. R4, C1. It's like chess. And then it's got virtual row 1, virtual column 4, virtual column 1. So that's just reference material in there to get to that from Keyboard Maestro. So all I did to get this working with these things, so that's the save command. I actually added a graphic in here. So we need to see the graphics, don't we? We go into Affinity Designer. I literally made these graphics. Let's do an open. And I've put them all in a folder of their own. Here they are. Which is in Hindenburg icons. Right, so there's my 3 times backward. I'm going to try and scoot this up a bit so we can see a preview. 3 times forward, 3 times back. And here are all of those icons that you saw on the Stream Deck. And all I did with them, so let's pick one. Oh, let's pick that one. Ripple delete from all tracks. What I did is create an artboard, and the artboard was 512, so it's pixel size, 512 by 512. I put an inner margin on it, and that was trial and error. I put some buttons on the Stream Deck and saw what they looked like, and worked out that that inner margin, let me have a look, did I put it on as a margin? Did I put it on as a margin? I didn't, it didn't include the margin, so it must be the border that I put on. But I didn't have anything outside there at all. I then split the thing up into 4 squares. And I worked on that so the icons looked right. I didn't want them to look where one icon was huge and the other looked tiny. And it was actually quite difficult to try and get something that looked okay for each one. But that one was what I did for delete from all tracks. Then I came to export it, and I exported it to a 512 PNG. And that is what you're looking at on there. So I literally just hit the export button, put that on the desktop. See, it's already got a name, delete from all tracks. And what I ended up with was that there. And all I then did over here was drag and drop that in down there. So you choose the button and you drag and drop that in. So if I wanted to do that, drag and drop it in. Simple as that. You can also, if you've got the ability to create your own, great. If you want to create a new one or reset to default, so I'll reset that one to default. This one here, if you haven't got Affinity Designer or any design skill, you can say create new icon. And what that will actually do is that one there. So there's a good starting point. You can move it, you can change it, you can put layers on it. Not bad at all, I didn't think. Not bad at all. The one with that one's nice as well. And you can see you're adding up layers. So if I wanted that one, but I wanted the colour bulb at the front, I can do that as well. So it's not a bad little icon editor. When you are done with it, you should then be able to download that. I didn't actually do this. You've got also the option for key mode, but you've also got wallpaper mode. Wallpaper mode gives you this here. So if you wanted your, like the MacBites logo on it, you could actually switch it into wallpaper mode, but we'll stick to key mode. And then you get an option to save the key. So we'll save that. And that will have downloaded. So it's downloaded up there. Let's have a look at it. Let's open it up in preview. And there's our icon. So if you wanted that on the thing, it's literally that fast to do it. So we'll put that on this one here by dragging and dropping it in. So there's the icon that I've downloaded. Let's drag and drop it down there. And we hold that up. There it is on the button, and it takes seconds. So the thing that took the longest time in this was actually this here. This manual part, you see my little post-it notes, the lot. This was the manual part that took the time, working out what I wanted where, working out what would make logical sense for me. But once I'd done that, this bit's actually quite quick. Now, remember, all you've done at this end, by this stage, is say, that's what I want the buttons to do. But they're not actually doing anything at the moment. So if we think about this button here, if I actually press that button, even if we were in Hindenburg, if I actually press that button, it's not doing a thing. Nothing is happening. But you can see at the top that this file hasn't yet been saved. But I have a save button in the top right hand corner. So if I push that, now it's saved. So these buttons across from the left are all wired up and doing things. These four not doing a thing at the moment, but they will be shortly. So that is the Stream Deck end of it. The next bit to do is the Keyboard Maestro bit, which I must admit I found the help less than helpful. But this is what I came up with in the end. I came up with the idea of creating another group. So all my Stream Deck buttons for Hindenburg were in a dedicated group. And you add a group by just clicking on the group icon at the bottom. You can call it whatever you like. And then straight away over on the right-hand panel, you get to say when these actions will be available. So it says available in these applications. So Hindenburg. I could add more if I wanted. I could add more and say Google Chrome, and I could add more and say Keynote. But obviously, what they actually do in each application would be very different. So it only makes sense to have it with Hindenburg. The only time I do something different than that is browsers. And you'll see here, I've got Chrome, Firefox, Canary, all sorts. I've even got Alparishes, Udemy and Podio there, which don't have an icon. That's historical. They were site-specific browsers I created years ago. But every time I have a new browser, it gets added into the browsers because these are the things that I want available in all browsers. So you'll see I've even got my Clip to Notion. Clip to Notion is actually a K. I can't do that one-handed. And I need my clip to Notion to be one-handed, so I rewired it to be Command Shift and X, which is one-handed. So I created this group and I wired it up to Hindenburg. The next thing to do was to create something over here in the actual list of macros that I wanted it to do. So for instance, if you remember, there was an option to publish. And if you look down that list, there's no option to publish. I didn't wire that up. Now, also here, that's sorted alphabetically. These are at the top, but they're not actually wired up. You see, it says disabled. They are disabled. But now it's alphabetical. And I was finding it quite difficult to remember from my lists which ones I'd wired up and which ones I hadn't. If you sort by button over here, that made much more sense. So column 1 don't have anything allocated with them, but row 1, column 2, row 1, column 3, column 4, column 5, column 6, they are now in a logical order. They are in the order that they're actually on the Stream Deck. But you'll notice publish isn't there. So we need to see how these things work. So let's pick one that's fairly straightforward. Let's pick pre-roll. Couldn't get easier. Pre-roll is just the P key. So in here, you tell it what device key to use. So it's the button in row 3, column 5. And then just press the P key. That's it. Some of them are a little bit more complicated. So if we look at that add marker and rename thing, did we do that? That one there. Right, that one's a little bit more complicated, but if you remember, it's the 3 things I had to do, plus a 1 second wait to make it happen. So Command, Shift and Return, then a menu command, so View Chapters, then wait for 1 second and then press Return. And I've wired that up to row 4, column 8. It's as simple as that. So if we wanted that button that we've put the pretty little icon on, the one with the bulbs on, to actually publish, what did you save? No, we'll do publish. We'll do publish. I'm having a think there. I'll do export actually, which is Command and E. Reasons for that will become apparent. If I do publish, it will actually publish it. We don't want that. So I'll do Command and E. Right, but what we need to do is work out which it is. Well, it's row 4 and it's column 1. So if we have a look down here, we've got nothing wired up to that at all. So I'll add a new option here, and this will be export. How is it going to be triggered? Well, it's going to be triggered with a USB device trigger key. And now what it wants me to do is actually push the button, tell it which one. So it's picked up the fact that I've pressed Stream Deck row 4, column 1. That's all it needed to wire it up. The next step is to tell it what to actually do. So I can put in here, there's a whole list. You could actually go through this if you wanted and find the thing in a list. That's all the things that it can do. But you can also drill down and say things like this. So, which would mine be? I have no idea even. No idea which one, because I never do it that way. I go into here and it's going to be a keyboard shortcut. So I start to type keyboard and I get... that's not what I get, is it? Come on. I don't want to toggle it. It's a key. Shortcut? No! What's going on? What's going on? Let me have a look what I did with it. Let me have a look what I did with it. Type. That's the trick. That's the trick. It's type. So in there, tell it what you want it to do. So type a keystroke. Then you just need to tell it which one, which is Command and E. And that's it. Technically, now that button will export. So let's go into Hindi. And we've saved it already. If I show you Command and E on the keyboard, so over here, Command and E, it goes to File and it goes to Export. So let's cancel that. Right, leaving the keyboard alone. Here's the Stream Deck. Let's press the button and it exports. It's that simple. So it comes up with that. You then, literally at this point, I would probably press enter. Wouldn't really need to do anything else. It's going to send that out to the desktop as an MP3 and I'm done. Now, I've probably got other things that I would like that to do. So let's go back into Keyboard Maestro. Publish was one of the things, so I may have wanted it to publish. I've got row 3, column 1 available. So let's see that again. Let's add in another macro. This one is publish. A new trigger, which is a device key trigger. Then press the button. So you can just see my hand there pushing that button, which is row 3, column 1, pushes it to the right place. The action is, again, type a keystroke, and this time the keyboard shortcut is Command and U. And OK. Let's go back to Hindi and push the button. This time it brings up the publish dialog. So that is literally, it's that simple. But it is simple once you know what you're doing. But I must admit, when I got it out of the box and I started playing around with it, it was like, this is never going to work. But that was because the instructions were shocking. Because you're working with Hindi, which means you've got to go find your shortcut key. You're working with Keyboard Maestro, which the help is incredibly brief. Let's say that. It's like a paragraph. And what I found was I was pushing the buttons and nothing was actually happening. I found the easiest way to do it. So let's take you through it once more, the way that I did it. I found the easiest way to do it was to come over to here. So let's say we're going to put, so we've done those 2 buttons. I'll just shove that on it. Let's say we're going to wire this button up. It made most sense to me when I realised how it was working to just look at that and drag that Keyboard Maestro thing backwards and forwards 32 times. And then I could close that. I didn't need to worry about that. That was enough. You don't put the actions in the Stream Deck software at all. All you do in here is drag and drop the Keyboard Maestro action to there and say yes. Now, obviously, if that was blank, if we'd already deleted that, you wouldn't even get that. I just dragged and dropped that to there 32 times. That was it. Left it alone. I could then actually close that down if I'd wanted. But the next thing I did was go to Keyboard Maestro and I added a macro. So what can I do with this one? Let's do an undo on this one. I think we've already got an undo. I'll put undo too. New trigger, choose the button, press the button, and then new action and tell it what action. So in this case, if it's undo, it would be Command and Z. Unclose it, and that's it. Go into Hindi, let's delete something, and then press undo. There we go. And it is as simple as that. What I'd say to you is, if you're going to do it, sit down and work it out first. Go through all this malarkey first. Otherwise, you'll find yourself dragging icons backwards and forwards and you'll probably blind yourself. Now, in terms of what this actually looks like on the desk, let me move this a little bit and show you the angle that it's at, which is that angle. So if I turn that round, you can see that is actually pretty steep. So if you can imagine me putting my hand on it here, I'd probably end up with a bad wrist. It would have to lift quite high. But this is attached magnetically. Might need you to hold this, Mike. I can't do that and pull it off. So if you can hold that there for me, so we can see that. Just hold that there. This bit actually comes off. Now I'm going to push that out of the way, and that will actually sit quite happily and quite flat on the desk, which hand-wise is much easier to work with. So that's the way I'm using it at the moment. It tilts up just enough that I can see the buttons, and obviously I'll get used to where they are anyway. If you just hold that there, and I've got one more trick up my sleeve. if that's not high enough for you, I have one of these, which is a Just Mobile cushion. And that pulls apart. It's for a laptop, but actually it will work for anything. You just put one on either side of it, rest it on the top, and it is completely solid. So that's probably about right, I would say. I can see all the buttons, I can push all the buttons. Life is so much easier now. Let's put that back on the desk. And that was how I wired it all together. So let's come out of there and come out of there and come out of there. And let's go back into here. Excellent. So I did use a lot of software, but it's not that complicated once you've done it. I must admit, I left it there for a week after having looked at it, thinking I'm going to need another week. I'm going to need a clear few hours to actually do it. But once you've got the first button working, go analog, work out what you want there, where, go back, and it went swimmingly well and very quickly. So again, the one I got was the Stream Deck XL, which is 32 buttons. They do them with 6 buttons, and is it 12? Mike, what's the middle one? There's the one with 6, which is very tiny. Have a look at Amazon. But the one I went for has got 32. I wanted to have 32 because I thought, well, as you've seen from the Hindenburg things, there's so many functions and stuff. I was going to have to leave some off anyway. I've literally tried to do the ones that I thought would make most sense. So if you look at the ones I've picked, Escape is used all the time. 15, I thought it was 12. So one's got 15, one's got 6, and this one's got 32. Save, I do all the time. I'm forever saving. This lets it play forward and backwards, so I use that quite a bit. These are adding chapter markers and things and using the blade and ripple delete. So those are the really, really important ones. But it's working well. It's working well. It's getting me through the edit faster, which means there should be a MacBites quicker. So that was using all of that lot. Right, next thing to think about. Ooh, I've kept this for that long. It's frightening. But let's go in and actually have a look at that. Right, I'm going to get rid of that. And you had to remind me something, Mike, but it's all right. I've remembered. Which is, I'm going to share in a different way tonight. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Because every time we share, we seem to have problems with YouTube. YouTube gets very uppity when we share a video. So I'm hoping that tonight it won't get anything like as uppity. And I'm going to move my Stream Deck out of the way. Let's get that out of the way. Back on its magnetic stand. If you saw my unboxing, you'll have seen me nearly drop the thing. Well, I didn't know it was magnetic. It didn't say so on the box. Right, that's back in its place. That's in its place. Let's move that across. Let's get the keyboard out of the way. And hello, there's me and my pen. Right, I can't remember which way round I was going to do this. Let me have a think. We've got 2. I think we'll do the surprise one first. Where did I put the boxes, Mike?
Behind me. This side.
Did I? Ah, I did. You're quite right. Oh, I love it when he knows better than I do. Right, but unusually, very unusually, we have a box. I'm going to let Mike do it.
What?
Unbox it. He's shocked. He's shocked. His little cotton socks. He's shocked. Come on, it was something you wanted.
Was it?
Now, don't pick it up. It's got to be in front of the camera. You want to do it there? But you can rip the box. I give you permission to rip the box. Oh, he's going for scissors like a right... Oh. Should I mention that you probably won't damage it if you do? Do the tear. Do the tear. I'll hold it. You do the tear. Have you any idea what it is?
No.
Good. I hope it's what I think it is and we've not got the wrong box. Oh, you see, I'm in these much faster than you.
So it's not the rubber doll you ordered?
No, not the rubber doll. I mean for Lola. Oh, come on. Oh, he's nearly in. Oh, you need more practice at this, Mike. He's confused. Well, get it out. Right, get it out and put it on there.
Desktop adjustable phone and tablet stand.
It was something you said you wanted.
Oh. Right.
Right, let's get all that out of the way. You get it out of the box on there. It's what every self-respecting Mac user needs, isn't it? A stand that takes two devices at the same time. Come on. Do you remember now?
I do.
Yes, because the proud owner of how many devices now. So the idea with this is it actually takes two. So how I use that, because I've got one over there if you look. There it is. I'm already sat there on one of those. But I've got two devices here, as luck would have it. One with a post-it note on the front. How very analogue. So one's charging. I would have that on there like that. And then I would pop another one on there like that I was actually watching, like that. Or indeed a tablet behind it, which you can also do. So let's try the tablet behind it manoeuvre. Not that you'd be able to see the entire tablet, would you? But there you go.
Oh.
You see? A box for you! Don't, mate, they don't get used to it. Don't get used to it. There you go. There's your toy. I'm very good.
You are.
And now I've got mine, which I'm trying to remember what it was. Here's mine. Looks like a similar box, but it's not. This is something for all of us. Do you know, once you've got one,
You, me and Lola.
Oh, yes. Pete's saying it's actually quite useful. It is. Once you've got one, you just automatically put the stuff on it. Whereas you would look at it on Amazon and think, I don't need one of those.
There we go.
You see, he's happily sorting himself out now. Shall I try and get this round there? There you go. There's Mike.
There we go.
Ooh, that's not Lola. That's first dog.
First dog.
First dog.
First dog has a name.
He does. Our beautiful boy Maya. Right, so I'm in here. This is something that we're all going to need. Stand for 3 devices. Do you know you could probably prop up another one in front of it? At some point it's going to get on. I'll get the link for you, Pete. It's going to get unwieldy, isn't it? Oh, love the sound of tearing cardboard. Yes, this is something that many of us may find useful, so I'm road testing it. There it is. Last shouts, if you want to have a guess what it is. It's my favourite company, Anchor. And I'm hopeful it will work. We'll see. But I should be able to test it straight away. So this is, our phone went from an iPhone 7 to an 11. And this is a wireless charger. I'd completely forgotten until it got here. And it was like 3 days later. And I thought, just a minute, I'm plugging this in, doesn't it? It wirelessly charges. But we'd never had, the only things we'd got that wirelessly charged were the AirPods. And for that, we got a flat charger. Whereas this one seemed like a much better bet for next to the bed. So let's have a look at this one. Oh, that's so good. Don't need the nails. They've actually been savvy enough. If you can grab hold of it. To pull that off there. Excellent. Right, so hopefully it is a stand that will work very well with any phone that wirelessly charges. That's the plan. Unfortunately, there was only black. Not a problem, our phones are black, but it would have been nice to have a white option, wouldn't it? Let's get that out of there. So there is, that's actually quite neat. I thought it would be more ungainly than that. Let's open that. There we go. Now, we didn't have much luck with the first one that we bought for charging the AirPods. But this is actually a stand, so we want that for next to the bed. That's the plan. So, yes, it comes with a cable. Here's the cable. So I'm actually going to plug that in. We have the power to plug that in. Hopefully the cable will be long enough. Oh, yeah, that's not bad at all. Now, it's not a lightning cable. It's a USB Kindle cable style thing. And hopefully that goes in the back there. But yeah, it's neat and tidy enough. It's a bit a bit tricky to get in. So let's put that there. And I have over here, let's whiz you round. Oh, with the dog's arnica. Dog medication. Oh, we're back with the dog mic when I've got dog medication on my desk. So that's my 10-port power thing. I think that's in. Yes, it is. Because it just very briefly lit up blue there. Very briefly. Right, where's the phone? Here's the phone. Right, what am I charged to? I am charged to 63%. I wonder if that'll work. Let's have a look. Pop that on there. There we go. It's saying it's charged. And it's actually charging at the top there. Now, does the screen go off? Oh, it does. And the blue light stays on at the bottom. There we go. So that was something that we needed for next to the bed, I felt. Don't know about you, Mike. Yeah. I know we've got away for years with... Well, I've actually got a letter rack next to the bed. And I stack all my stuff up in there. This one might be better for as a nightstand. What's the wattage? Let's have a look at it. What does it say on here? It says... yeah, you could put that in your glasses I could actually read. Let's have a look. It doesn't say much, to be honest. Let's have a look. See what's in here. The stand was about £5 that I got, that metal stand. Specifications. Here we go. You'll probably be able to read that better than I would. If I hold it there, is it in focus? That's what I'm doing. I'm going to hold it up to the camera. Because if it can focus, it stands more chance than I do. I think it said 5 watt.
It's printed in Hong Kong.
I'm having a look.
5 watt to 10 watt.
Yeah, 5 watt to 10 watt. It charges to full in 3.5 hours, which is fine for me because it's really overnight. That's the only time I'd probably be using it. But that's that bit. Is anything else in here worth seeing? No, that's in Dutch. So that's it. That's the only instructions that it comes with. Yeah. Hebrew, Portuguese, you name it, but that's it. Just those 2 pages there. There is this that comes with it as well. Oh, how quaint. Little instructions showing you how to plug one cable in. The good thing with it is, though, which would work great for you, Mike, is you can have it that way to hold it. So you could watch the match on it when you've sorted Sky out. What's this one here? It's saying... It's charging when the blue light's on, yeah, pretty much. Don't lift it up and don't put small stuff on it. And don't put one of those ring things on the back. Those selfie things. And there's more information. So I'll hold that there a fraction and then I'll read it. So for compatibility with iPhones, iPhone 8, 8 Plus, 10, XR, XS, XS Max, and then a load of LG stuff. And then the 10 watt one. It says Samsung Galaxy S9, blah, blah, blah. Now, there were 2 of these that looked identical, but this one was the newer one, and there was money off it. It was something like, it was about £14, which I didn't think was bad at all to try it. Anyway, yeah, it's charging it. That's all I need. Now, does it charge it if it's the other way? Let's have a look. It does. So you can watch it. What's that? Yeah, it's charging it. Oh, I'm impressed. Colour me impressed. Oh, good grief, I've woken Siri up. Leave it be, don't wake Siri up. We never get any peace. Right, let's have a look. I like that, Pete. Is it 3? Oh, it is. Yes, with rounded corners. Oh, snazzy, snazzy. Yes, it is, absolutely. So hopefully I'll report back on how it behaves this week. But I have high hopes because there's nothing worse than having it half charged. So at least that way it would be charged every morning. That's the plan anyway. Right, let's get back to see what we've got coming up. So let's head back over there. Yes, we're back next week. Now, we've managed to double book ourselves again. But just like a few weeks back, we intend to be in 2 places at once. We know this can be done. The good news for you is it means we already know what we're covering. So it's going to be a YouTube premiere. We are going to be looking at a free app from Adobe called Adobe Capture. Who's heard of Adobe Capture? It's been around a while, but they have actually improved it greatly of late. So I thought it was time to take another look at it. The other thing we'll be doing, and I will expect you to be spotting all my red spots moving around, is iPadOS. There's lots to look at in iPadOS. So we'll be taking a look at that. Mike's Excel stuff tonight was only a warm-up for next week. Next week, he's looking at pivot tables. That's the number one request I hear when people talk to you about Excel. Even people, you know, when you meet people socially and they haven't got a clue one end of a spreadsheet from the other, they'll just stand there, particularly blokes, rubbing their chin going, oh, yes, I made a pivot table once. They haven't got a clue, but that's what they do. So pivot tables, the holy grail of Excel. And Mike will be sharing his knowledge. And I'll be doing Introduction to Creating Content with Scrivener 3. So who uses Scrivener already? I need to know these things because I don't want to teach you things you already know. So who uses it already? And if you do, what for? Now, Pete's going to get very excited here because I'm going to be in touch with you, Pete. This is a basic one, but we'll be moving on to the stuff that you were talking about, compiling and importing and all sorts of other things. Let me have a look at that question. What projector do you use? You have a new one. We did. We got a dirt cheap one. We got an absolutely dirt cheap one. I think it was about £45, £44.50, something like that. What make was it, Mike? The make is totally escaping me, but it will be in one of the early shows. It was one of the very first unboxings we did, and I think we talked about it on MacBites. I will find the link for that and I will let you know. Is that a huge yes for you? Use it. I'm starting right at the beginning, be warned, because there are a lot of people who don't use it. I'm also going to be introducing the fact that most people say, oh, I've got no need for Scrivener, I'm not writing the next War and Peace. And I always say you don't need to be, neither am I. I don't even put my blogging stuff in it. What I do with it, I've tried blogging with it, and I prefer to blog with Ulysses. Purely from the uploading perspective. But all the emails go through Scrivener. The show notes go through Scrivener. There's lots of content goes through Scrivener. Courses go through Scrivener. But it's not actually a book. But hey, if I can do all that with it, then a book's got to be easy, hasn't it? Oh, that'd be good, Pete. I'd love to see those. Future show request. Anything on paperless workflows. A brother to replace him in Fujitsu. Oh, I'm liking the sound of that. I too have a Fujitsu. It's and it's the same model as that, an S510M. Yes, it's seen better days, and it won't work with my OS. It hasn't worked with that for years. But I've kept it going with that old laptop. The one that I said to you is behind all the other stuff. The 10-year-old laptop, it's hooked up to that. But yes, that would fit in nicely with the DevonThink thing, wouldn't it? So that's a definite. We can do that. Mike will make a note of that. Receipt and expense management. Oh, let me think. I'm going back up the chat here to check something. No, I can't find what I'm looking for. But in relation to that, yes, we can definitely look at that. There was some other. Yes, what you could do, which is pretty amazing and does work amazingly well, you can actually send your scanned stuff straight to Notion, which you wouldn't think you could do, but you can. I must admit, I use Scanner Pro, which is very good. But yes, we can definitely have a look at that. Right, anyway, moving on from Introduction to Scrivener, where we'll be written everything from academic papers, essays, book content. Just need to figure out compile. Compile is incredibly different in version 3 from version 2, and it causes a lot of people a lot of problems, either because they don't understand compile full stop, or they're coming to Scrivener 3 from Scrivener 2 and it's like, whoa, what did you do to it? So compile is probably worth a session in its own right. This one's going to be sort of getting going with it and importing stuff, but we will definitely move on to that. Right, in the meanwhile, we love you guys. If you love us, do give us a like. It does make a difference to YouTube. They might even get our audio and video in sync one day if we got enough likes. So think of it in those terms. We do. Right, you can get first dibs on anything that we're doing via elainegiles.com/VIP. And of course, you can contact us. And some of you have, using any of those methods. And we do. We love to hear from you. We really, really love to hear from you. You are the first people we have told that we have adopted Lola. Even the neighbours don't know. And you got collared by one of the neighbours, didn't you?
I did.
And he said, oh, when are you going to get another dog? And Mike was like, maybe. And Lola's looking at him like, just a minute. Oh, we're a bit excited, if you can tell that. You couldn't use compile in any version. Okay. Compile is a nightmare, but the things it can do are amazing. I once spent a day and a half making a compile setting, but it was worth it because what it enabled me to do was take content that I'd got in Scrivener that was there anyway, and it produced an XML file that was loaded into a content management system, and it just worked. It was amazing. That was one of the reasons why I took the show production into Scrivener, because I figured I could get out of it recording notes, show notes, email, and blog post. And we do. So we do all kinds of things with Scrivener. So we can show you all of that. Thank you, Neil. Thank you. Have we ever covered Omnigraffle? No, I haven't, but I have used it. So we could do. Funny story with Omnigraffle. I love Omnigraffle. I was a very heavy user of Visio back in the day. I actually bought Visio before Microsoft owned it. So I've been using Visio since 1994. And when I moved to a Mac, obviously no Visio, and I found Omnigraffle and I started using Omnigraffle. And then a few years ago, it would be 4 years ago now, just about this time of year as well, we were in dire need of an old conservatory to be removed before it fell down, believe you me. So we had a guy around and it was, well, we could do this, we could do that. And he basically described what this thing would look like. So it's a huge extension on the back of the house. The top of it is just under the bedroom window. So it's really tall. And it's about 3 meters wide by about 15 meters long. So it was huge. Anyway, we got discussing with him the pitch of the roof. And then there was a saga with the windows. And you know what workmen are like. Oh, it'll be fine. Now, this is the same guy who told the builders, the brickies, about the bottom half. You know the bottom half of an extension that's brick and then you're going to put the windows on top of that? Yes, he gave them full and comprehensive instructions, which was fine. I walked out and I looked at it and thought, oh, coming along nicely, and went back into the kitchen. At which point I nearly dropped the kettle and I just stared out of the side window and thought, oh my God. And I dashed out to the back door again and I had another look. It looked fabulous. They'd put the door in the wrong place. So this guy was like, I'm not trusting this bloke. And Mike's like, oh, calm. Anyway, my new iPad arrived. It was the very first 12.9-inch iPad. And I put Omnigraffle on it. And I thought, and I had my pencil. And I thought, you know what? I could do to scale exactly what I want them to build, rather than what they think they're going to palm me off with. And I did. And I used Omnigraffle for it. It was beautiful. I'll actually show it you in this. When we cover Omnigraffle, I'll show it you. And there was this thing. It had the side elevation, the front elevation, the windows on it, the full bit. Anyway, he came in full of his usual. oh, we'll do this and we'll do that. And I said, just a minute. I said, look, that was what we agreed. And I handed him this iPad. For a start, he'd never seen an iPad that big. And there was Omnigraffle with these plans on it. And I don't think he'd ever seen plans like that either. I was there with my hands underneath the iPad for when he dropped it in shock. Needless to say, we got exactly what we wanted, didn't we, Mike?
We did.
There was no escape from this. There was absolutely no escape. It was there in Omnigraffle and he just had to do that. You've just exported to Word. Okay. So not gone through the compile and mapped styles and stuff like that. Just exported to Word. Well, hopefully I can give you some pointers of things you can do. Then it's just a matter of you deciding what it is that you actually want to do. As I say, we use the same source data, but we produce 5 different outputs from it. Some are plain text, some are HTML, some go straight to Markdown. One goes to a Word file, and the Word file is then converted into a Google Doc. So I could show you that workflow, and you get an idea for why we do it the way we do it. It's by far the most seamless way to work, and we've tried everything. You have it but haven't used it yet. Scrivener's a bit like that. It is, to be honest. I used it before it was an alpha. There was a free version, and it was in a free version for a long time. He told everybody, it wasn't going to be free forever, but this free version went on for quite a while, and then he released it. He let that be, and it became Scrivener Gold. So when the first version of Scrivener was released, this old one was still kicking around for a while. And I've used it since then. But one of my problems early on was support for Markdown, which it basically doesn't have great support for Markdown. The other issue I had was exporting to WordPress, which it doesn't do directly. But then I guess that is not really what it's intended for. Now, Ulysses, on the other hand, if it's blog post you want to post, Ulysses is far more integrated. But Ulysses couldn't handle all that we throw at it in terms of show notes and emails and stuff like that. So yes, compile is the black art. That's the black art. But the first session is going to be an intro. So if you've never used it, it's going to be perfect. I'll show you what you can use it for. And the basic features like how to import stuff that you've already got, how to organize it, all the different views you've got, how the whole thing hangs together. So that's what that session will be. Anyway, thank you very much. So we will be bobbing in next week. We'll be in and out again, like we were last time. We've got people here. We've got to dash out. But we will be able to hop in and out. That's the plan. So we'll definitely be hopping in and out. Obviously, our gallivanting days are long gone now, aren't they, Mike? Because we've got a new dog. So, yeah, Lola needs looking after. So we're homebound now. Anyway, next door staff is rather pleased. He's got new company. He's been patrolling the grounds for the last 4 years for us. Now he's got company. Oh, thank you very much, Kim. We're very excited, as you can probably tell. Thing is, what was so funny about it was when Maya died, we weren't ready. We were not ready for another dog of any description. And about 6 months later, was it a little bit longer than that? About a year after he died, Mike was late home one day. So I starts looking for him on Find My Friends, and I can see that he's stopped round the corner. And not by a shop or anything, just like randomly outside somebody's house. I thought, what's he doing? Next minute, he FaceTimes me. So I say, you okay? And he went, oh, yes. And he turned the camera around and he said, look what I've found. And there was baby Lola in this young girl's arms. And it was her first walk. And it was the first time we'd seen a Samoyed since Maya died. So I'm like, oh my God. And she was so cute. She was so adorable. Then we started looking after Ollie, who's a little jackapoo. And we took Ollie for a walk. And in the park, there was a lady. Now, it wasn't the same lady. It turned out to be the girl's mum. And she was walking a Samoyed. And we looked and said, oh, Samoyed, look. Not knowing it was the same dog. Anyway, we got talking to her and she said, actually, she's my daughter's dog. And we looked at each other and said, what's her name? And she said, Lola. We went, oh, it's the same dog. Anyway, she lived very close to the park. So that's how come we got talking to her, and how come we've been looking after Lola for almost a year now. So it was just a year ago when we went to the park and we met up with her again. So we are incredibly, incredibly blessed. We've already had a fantastic year, taking her for a week here and there and looking after her during the day when everybody's out. But yes, it's been a good week. It's been a very good week. And she's settling in well, isn't she? She's been ever so good. You see, if we were doing this show a few years ago when Maya was here, oh, you would have heard him. He was a very vocal little boy, wasn't he? And he didn't like it if we were marooned in here talking to other people. We were his servants and we should be waiting on him hand and foot. So, yes. But she's a lot quieter. So we hope that you have a fantastic time next week. As I say, we'll be popping in and out of the chat, but it will be a pre-record. It will be going out as a YouTube premiere, so it will start at 9 o'clock Friday night. I hope to be in the chat with you, various points, probably with lots more photos to link to from all Lola's exciting week. And we'll be back with you fully live in 2 weeks. But what date's that? It's the 19th, isn't it? It's the Saturday. It's the 19th, which is a Saturday night, which is better for some, worse for others. So we've not got too many Saturdays planned, but that is a Saturday we've got. But for the moment, what we're going to have to eat? Fruit. I might have a few nuts. We did have some nice nuts, didn't we? They were honey roast something or other. Probably not appropriate for teeth, but they were very nice. So that's not good. Thank you, everybody, for your kind words about next week. We will endeavour to have a very good time. And I'm sure with Lola in tow, we will have a fantastic time. So we're going to head off and have some lovely fruit salad and maybe some nuts. And we hope you have a lovely, lovely weekend and a good week. And we'll be back live in 2 weeks. But for now, it's good night from me.
It's good night from the silent one.
Hang on, let me turn you up.
Thank you.
There you go.
It's good night from me.
Excellent. And we'll both see you next time. Good night, guys.